Right, here we are, guys, for Fourth and Gold podcast, episode 10. Already into the second half, into the home stretch of season one. Going to kick off straight away with performance of the week. I'm pretty certain I know what Jay's is going to be, so I'm just going to kick off with Jay. What's your performance of the week?
I mean, come on, guys. What do you think it's going to be? It's going to be my man.
Oh,
Yeah, he was
stop.
unlucky not to get it, but it's got to be my man, CJ Strikes, aka CJ Stroud. Wow. Let me set the scene for you. The Buccaneers had 10 days to prepare for this one. As we know, the Buccaneers defense, while not elite, it's a good defense. It's a stingy defense. Damian Pierce is one of very few players on the Texans going into the season that we would recognize as a good player. He was out. And so, yeah, I mean, the first half, I mean, I think we all picked the Buccaneers to win.
Yeah.
As much as I love my man CJ Stroud, I thought, yeah, the Bucs, they're a good team. 10 days to prepare. Texans didn't have their starting running back. Kaimi Fairbairn, their kicker, gets injured in the first half. We look at the first half and we're sort of saying, yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud's had a reasonable game, but the Buccaneers have kept him in check, maybe for about 150 yards. Okay. Second half starts and the Buccaneers race into a 10-point lead. And it was from that point onwards that we saw something very, very special from a rookie quarterback. CJ Stroud just was on absolute point. He just ripped that Buccaneers defense to shreds. The first touchdown, he threw it to, I think it was Noah Brown. And yeah, okay, it was a good throw, maybe 20, 30 yards, and then Noah Brown took it the rest of the way. But for a lot of this second half, it was just laser after laser after laser. And, you know, he threw for basically 300 yards in that second half. There was a lot of adversity because every time they had a touchdown, they had to go for two. And in the first half, they weren't getting that. So, you know, they were costing themselves effectively a point every time. We come to the fourth quarter now, and the Bucs on their final drive, Baker is in Texan territory. He throws it to, I think, who was the receiver? I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Godwin. It was someone else. They caught it. It was then punched out. It then deflected off two Texan defenders and then landed into the breadbasket of none other than Mike Evans on the 8-yard line. And it's at that point you're thinking, it's just not their day. The very next play, Baker throws a touchdown, 47 seconds left. Texans have 2 timeouts. So you're thinking, there might be a little bit of a shot here, but we know in these situations, the Buccaneers know what's coming. They know what's needed, and that's big plays. So here comes CJ Stroud. He's already had a great game. This is a challenge for him. Can he deliver the game-winning drive? The first pass is about a 10-yard play inbounds, timeout burn. They then throw a flat to Schultz, who kind of couldn't make the right... He sort of hesitated and got tackled inbounds. An absolute disaster for them. They burn the second timeout. They're still in their half with no timeouts and less than 40 seconds to go. This is starting to look like a bit of a problem. Next play, CJ Stroud throws a crosser, 25, 30 yards. It's caught. Now they have to run to the line. They have to spike. 41-yard line of the Bucs, 25 seconds. They need a touchdown. A lot has got to happen here. And then I would say the throw of the game from CJ Stroud. Absolute laser. They're playing basically quarters. So you got 4 deep. CJ Stroud just rips that zone to shred. Perfect corner route. It literally had to be at the sideline for, I think it was, I'm literally having to read some of these receivers' names. Tank Dell made the catch. Great catch. Unbelievable throw. 10 seconds left. He's probably got 2 shots at it. He gets it on the first one. I ain't got nothing more to say, really. I think we're seeing something very special with a team that is not very special at all. This could be one of the best rookie quarterback seasons we've ever seen. But what I will say is this was the best, not rookie, the best quarterback performance of the season.
Yeah, got to agree with that. It was an amazing matchup, to and fro until the final whistle, basically. It was great to watch. And what did he finish on in the end? Was it about 465 yards or something?
470. Oh, that's a good point, Rob. 470, 5 touchdowns. The first time in Texans history where they had 3 receivers over 100 yards.
How much of that game was? I'm sure 2 of them were our all-time rookie records. I think it's
the yards
and touchdowns.
Andrew Luck had the yards before.
Yep, the touchdowns tied the record. So right. 5 is the record. He tied that. But yeah, he beat the passing yards from Andrew Luck.
And I heard Big Ben this week. He was talking to Steelers fans about how upset they are with how Kenny Pickett is or is not progressing. And they said, you've got to give him 3 years. Okay, let's give CJ Stroud 3 years to see if he's a quarterback. No, we need to give him, 9 games to see if he's a quarterback. Imagine what he's going to be in 3 years. He's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
He's only going to get better. And if you put some talent on that team, like you said, he's throwing to Tank Dell, who's very fast, but he's not, look on the other side, Mike Evans and Godwin. He's not them, is it?
Yeah. Well, you look at CJ Stroud coming out of college, obviously went, number 2, didn't he? I never saw any of this at Ohio State. And I didn't see this coming. So this has to go down to 2 people, CJ Stroud and the Texans coaching, because he didn't show a lot of this in college. Yeah, he played good, but lots of quarterbacks play good at college for the big programs. The fact that he's taken that next step forward compared to Young at Carolina just shows the right organization. Can we say that about the Texans? But you've got to give them credit. Since they took the GM, whether that was to try and keep Deshaun Watson or not, was it Casero? I can't remember his name. He's doing a good job. He's now got D'Amico Ryans, who for me, he could be the next coming. And again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but your next great sort of long-standing coach. I love everything I see, and I said it after week 1. I just loved how the players were performing for him, and a team to watch. If again, let's see, with a quarterback now, that's the hardest position to fill, as the Jets are proving very, very well so far this year. But let's see how the second half of the year goes. He's got a good matchup this week against the Bengals, so let's see if he can carry that over for one more week. So I'll go with my performance of the week, and I would have done Stroud, but obviously I knew Jay would be doing it, and I thought Paul might have done it as well. So I purposely haven't gone with him, even though for me he was the performance of the week. I've gone with the team that I said needed to step it up last week, which is the Raiders. Reason is they were an absolute mess the week before last. The owner made an $85 million decision to get rid of the offensive coordinator, the coach and other backroom staff. They kept the defensive coordinator. And I get that. The defense hadn't been shockingly bad all year. They maybe not have been elite, but they've actually kept them in some games this year. And they promoted Pierce. And you look at how the players played this Sunday. They played for him. He seemed like, again, got it under a little bit of control. Admittedly, were the players, had they already given up with the previous regime, and then you get that new coach bounce, possibly, but doesn't matter. They won the game. All you can judge a team by is what they do on that day against who they're playing. What you needed is exactly how they started that game. Bearing in mind how Vegas had been, you go on New York Giants, get the kickoff, 3 and out, perfect, exactly what you want to get the crowd into the game. Your first possession, touchdown, bang, bang, there you go. And you look at for a lot through the game, they were showing all the crowd. Everyone was into it. They were loving it, and it was just like there was a new buzz. And I've got to give Davis credit for that. There's not many things I'll give him credit for in terms of his decision making. And the jury is definitely still out. But from being my step it up from 1 week, they stepped it up. They got rid of the rotting apples. And it looks as though, again, it might only be temporary, but the people that are there have gone in and made an impact. Yes, it's against the Giants, but they suffocated the Giants. The defense stepped up, 8 sacks in the game. Crosby with 3 sacks himself. Players stepping up. Now, if the coaches can somehow get Devontae Adams back into this offense, because it's a travesty, the amount of receptions and targets he's had in the last 2 weeks. I don't even think he's got to like 7 or 8 targets in 2 weeks of football. He should be getting more than that in one game. Obviously, you can only play with what you've got. But yeah, performance of the week for me. Raiders organization, well done. I'm not expecting this to be something that carries on for the rest of the year, but for week 9, that's my performance of the week. What about you, Paul?
So if it's all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to back. I'm going to do my performance of the week and my step it up.
Go for it.
Yeah,
back to back, because they're from the same game. So my performance of the week, very simple, and I won't go on too much about this, is the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and specifically their D coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, who I found out after the game used to be, this is how long he's been around, was the defensive coordinator for the Frankfurt Galaxy. And that was like homecoming for him to go back there and then to coordinate for the Chiefs this past week. Watching that game, Kansas City keep things pretty simple, but it's very, very hard to play against. They've got the corners on the outside to play man to man, and they're playing against Miami and Miami's weapons. And I think we were all guilty of falling into the Miami trap of they've got way too much speed. They'll just find a way. Tyreek Hill will have about 1 million yards. Well, if Tyreek Hill is smacked in the mouth at the line of scrimmage, then it's hard for him to get away if I'm that close to you. And literally, he was getting hit in the mouth by McDuffie or Breland, whoever they put on him. And it's very hard for him for Miami to run their play actions with Hill and Waddle running wide open if they're stopped in their tracks at the line by the Kansas corners. So they did that. And also what they were doing constantly was just not very complicated blitzes, but just bringing different guys at different times from different formations. And Miami had almost no answer to it. Miami kept falling behind on first and second down, and they were constantly in third and long. Now, when Miami were crushing teams previously earlier on in the year, they were having big chunks on first and second down. They didn't really have third downs to worry about. And situational football, right? So Miami have the ball driving down, trailing by 14 with, I think they started the drive, a couple of minutes to go in the first half. They get the ball to start the second half, so they could potentially tie the game. Touchdown here, touchdown after the half. Now, do you remember the play? So Tua fumbles it. Well, Tua's hit by McDuffie, who's blitzed on a disguised blitz. It's the corner blitz in Tua. He doesn't expect it. It's not accounted for. He then laterals the ball, which we very, very rarely see. Laterals the ball to, I can't remember what player it was, number 6 anyway, like a linebacker, I think. And he runs down the field, right? That play is a rugby play. It's a rugby pass. But it's so aggressive because what did they have to lose at the very end of the half? The Chiefs? Nothing. That if they stop Miami from scoring, then they've had a win. But what I'm trying to say is that Miami don't turn the ball over there. At worst, take the field goal. Potentially, you could then go down and score on the first possession of the second half, and you're losing 14-10. Instead, you go in, you're trailing 21-0. What was the final score in the game? 21-14. That was a 14-point swing at worst. Definitely a 7-point swing because they gave the Chiefs their 7 points. They lost the game by 7. That's your ball game right there. And it's the Chiefs from just confusing the hell out of the Miami Dolphins and just playing. They don't have superstars on the defensive side of the ball, but what they do have is just an intelligence. Everybody knows what they're doing when they're supposed to do it, and their game plan watching it against the Dolphins was very simple. Just don't let the Dolphins have big plays. And they didn't. And yeah, I was massively impressed by the Chiefs. And their defense is why they're 7-2. Because their offense will, I'm not saying it's going to be what it used to be, but it will improve a bit. You think it would. And if they're 7-2 with this, D's not going to get worse. That's only going to get better. Because, for example, McDuffie's a rookie. He's only going to get better. I was massively impressed with Kansas City to hold the Dolphins to 14 and the way that they did it. Because I didn't watch all of the Miami games earlier in the season where they got beaten by the good teams. I watched all of this Chiefs game, and yeah, it was just a combination of the Dolphins not adjusting to what the Chiefs were doing. And don't think that they gave up the run, that most that had a good game. No, most that ran the ball at the very end of the game when the Chiefs were just going, okay, well, you can run. Like, this game's done. Like, so it's not like they can't stop the run. They stopped the run earlier in the game, stopped the pass, stopped the run, and just Miami had no answers. Massively impressed with the Chiefs. And then following on from that, Miami. So the stat I heard earlier this week, which blew my mind, they've got 17 points per game on average in their 3 defeats. Guess how many points per game they've got in their 6 wins so far this game? Now, I'll give you one. They had 70 in one game.
40. About 39, 40 points probably.
Yeah.
Bang on. 39 points. So they score 39 points in their wins, and they score 17 in their defeats. And, they had every opportunity to beat Kansas City this past week because, like I said, with going over Kansas City's defense, it's not exotic. It's not complicated what they're doing. It's just very well executed. Miami have all the talent in the world to get around that, but they just didn't adjust. They didn't think, right, well, let's change what we're doing in game, adjust what we're doing in game. They seem to have one or two plans, and the best teams will adjust as they go. Despite all of that, like I said, they had a 7-point, the turnover at the end of the first half, where they gave the Chiefs 7 points. Despite all of that, it came down to the last drive. On the third down play, Tua had Wilson open to tie the game. He just didn't make the throw. Remember the throw where he just lobbed it up into the air? It was a massive, massive underthrow. Yeah. Wilson ran past the Chiefs' corner on a blown coverage. He's running through for the game-tying touchdown with less than a minute to go. And then he fumbles the snap on the fourth down play, game over. They had so many chances, time after time, this game to actually just show, and it was showing the world, because the world was watching that game, being an international game. And I think the Dolphins are going to be a disappointment. They could be so much more than what they showed this past week, but Kansas City showed them levels. That's championship, not even championship levels, but that's like a mentality of, we're not going to lose the game. We're going to pressure you. And they pressured the Dolphins, and the Dolphins lost the game rather than Kansas City win the game. So yeah, that's my step it up, is Miami and Tua. In the moment, he shrunk.
Nice one. Thanks for that, Paul. So my step it up for week 9 has got to be the Atlanta Falcons. You know, you look at that game, they're playing a backup quarterback who then goes out, and then they play the third string quarterback who'd only been there about 3 days. You're up by, I think at one point they were up in the second half by 10 points, and you can't pull off the win. They made stupid turnovers at the worst points of the game to just keep the Vikings in it. And you look at the Vikings couldn't have done much more to lose the game initially. They had a safety and 2 fumbles. One of them fumbles at their own 30-yard line, which the Falcons, I think, only got a field goal. They definitely didn't get a touchdown from it. And you got Dobbs, who's coming in. Like I said, he's been there for 3 days, and he's thrown for 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, and rushed for 66 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, that 66 yards of rushing, he actually probably ran about 120 yards based off of the scrambling that he was doing. And it was like, when are the defense going to actually change it up and have a spy on the quarterback and actually change their scheme specifically for Dobbs? They must have known that there was a chance he was coming in, or if not, that, like, you're looking at all quarterbacks in the league. Right? He's already been at the Cardinals. You can look at tape in preparation. They must have prepared for the possibility of him entering the game. And you look at, in comparison, the Saints against the Bears. Now, the Saints had the same issue with Badgett running, and they changed it up. And in the second half, as it got further into the game, that stopped happening. Badgett didn't get the running lanes to scramble for the first downs, for the 5-6 yards as he was doing, which was keeping drives going on. And I think there was one stage where Dobbs got pushed back. He must have been past the 20, maybe even close to the 30-yard line on like 3rd and 16 or 4th and 16 or something like that. And he ended up getting a touchdown from it. Like, how can any NFL defense allow that to happen? That's like watching high school football. That was a game there for the Falcons that they needed to win. And I don't understand how they didn't win the game. I still can't put my finger on it. Again, fumbling the ball at the worst time possible that kept the Vikings in it. And fair play to the Vikings. They didn't give up, but shouldn't have mattered with the turnovers that they'd had. 3 turnovers, I think, in the first half or the first 3 quarters at least. That should have been too much to come through for an NFL team down to their 3rd choice quarterback without their 1st choice wide receiver, and the Falcons still couldn't beat them. Falcons, you've got to step it up. And Jay, what's your step it up for week 9?
Yeah, so it is similar to Paul, but mine is Mike McDaniel, Tua, and specifically the Dolphins' offense in general. Before I start on them, I just want to say, if you had told me before the game that the Dolphins' defense would give up 14 points in the first half and 0 in the second half, I would have said, this is a blowout.
Yep.
It wasn't to be. And the Miami defense did only give up 14 in that first half because obviously they had the fumble 6. The Chiefs had the fumble 6. So your offense gave up 7. And again, just one other point before I go on to the offense. What we saw from the Miami defense almost, I think, is a blueprint for the future on the Chiefs, because for the entire game, they doubled Kelsey and said, no, you have to beat us with someone else. And in the first half, yeah, they had a few plays, but that was a very difficult second half. And I've only really seen this one other time this season, I think Chiefs-Jets, where it wasn't the whole game the way the Dolphins did it, but it was a lot. And it's kind of common sense when you think about it. I mean, the Chargers just said, we're just going to play zone. And Kelsey's just going to run all around our zones and we're not going to adjust. And he went for 100 in the first half, I think. So no step it up from me on the Miami defense. The offense. This sounds very familiar to a certain NFC team. We score a lot of points against bad teams. We're not scoring that many points against good teams. And we're very flashy. We're a front-running team. And yeah, we're a hype train. This is the AFC Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry. I give all the credit in the world to the Chiefs defense. Rob's been saying it from week 1, I think. McDuffie, they've got a potential superstar there. But this Miami offense, as Paul said, they don't have plan B. They're just running plays. Like, we're going to run our flashy plays, and it's almost like we're not even looking at what the defense is doing. We're just going to run them and see what happens. I mean, the amount of times that the ball gets snapped to Tua and like he does like a pirouette or something. Yeah. And then you're expecting him to throw straight away. How does that work? And I'm not defending Tua, because big moments come. Tua not delivering in these big moments. Somehow I've become a Tua defender for a lot of this season, but I can't defend you. You've improved, definitely, but you're never going to be a top 5 quarterback, and that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, in those big moments, you sort of say, Wilson, that's a wide open touchdown. That should be tie game. We should be potentially going to overtime. But I think most of this I'm going to hold on Mike McDaniel, someone that we've all raved about this season. But I'd say that his own hype maybe has gone a little bit too far, because there's been a lot of chatter that he's a better offensive mind than Shanahan. I'm sorry, Shanahan schemes big wins. You have not done that so far in your Miami career. You're very early in. You've done very well at times. But you've got to be... You can't just run plays. You have to adjust, as Paul said. you've got to know what the defense is giving you. It's not a case of we're going to run our plays and we're going to live with the result, because in the big games, like we've seen against the Bills, against the Eagles, and now against the Chiefs, that's not the way this works. There's a higher level to reach, and you've got to reach it, because at the moment, these are pretenders. And it's ironic, really, because the defense played really well.
Yeah.
They more than did their job. 14 points.
It's funny you mentioned the Tua pirouettes, because I noticed that in the game as well. I was trying to work out, because I don't remember. I've never noticed another quarterback do it like Tua does. He's a lefty. He goes backwards to the right, which doesn't really make sense for a left-handed thrower. And then instead of maybe just opening your body up this way to be able to throw it, he goes the other way, so it has to do a 360 turn. And he's already lost another second by doing that pointless pirouette. And there were 2 plays off the top of my head that I can remember that. And yeah, it looks really awkward and weird. Just surely that stuff needs to be ironed out.
He's literally got a split second to throw after that.
Yeah.
I think one of them he pirouetted, and it might have been one of those corner blitzes where he suddenly turns around and he's got defense.
Yeah, that's lovely. Good stuff. Okay, so that's our performances of the week and step it up of the week. Now going into the top 5 quarterbacks through week 9. So I'll kick us off here. For the first week this year, I have put Stroud as number 5. He is in the top 5. Jay put it very eloquently. Everything that he did on Sunday alone was special. Even the first half, it weren't fireworks, but it was still a good first half of quarterback play. The second half is something we won't see possibly for many years to come from a rookie quarterback. I'm hoping next year with Caleb Williams we might, but that was special what we saw in that second half. And yeah, there were arguments that he could have been in there already in the top 5. He's had some really good games. Carolina game was a bit of a concern for me, but overall, the body of work for this year, I've got to put him in the top 5. So Stroud is my number 5. Number 4 is Lamar Jackson. Again, we sort of say it week in, week out, but he played a good Seattle team, not a great Seattle team, that have a definitely well above average secondary. And he put them away like nothing. Didn't put monster numbers up, but he managed the game and got the win. I can't remember what the score was, but it was by 20 plus points off the top of my head. Comfortable win, exactly what you want. As the Ravens, they got a hard schedule coming up over the next few weeks. And I just love watching him play. He's doing less with his legs. I would like to see a little bit more of his legs just to keep defenses on their toes a bit more. But who am I to say he's doing it wrong based off of the way they've been playing the last few weeks? So Lamar Jackson is my number 4. Number 3 is Josh Allen. They didn't get the win in the week, but again, seems like a common theme of all of our topics when talking about Allen and the Bills. I don't put it on Allen. I put it on just the players and the coaches he's got around him. What can you do? Natural talent. If you're starting a team, he's one of 3 quarterbacks you would choose to start with a team, and you wouldn't really care any one of them 3 that you have. Cleaned up his game a little bit overall. Still the odd mistake here and there, but again, you're going to make mistakes with this team you've got around you. He has to play the perfect game with the way this team is playing, and that's not going to happen more often than not. So that's my number 3. Now, for the first time this year, I was debating my 1 and 2, and I have gone with my number 2 just as Burrow. I was this close to putting him as my number one quarterback. As I've said the last couple of weeks, I jumped the gun putting him in there after the San Fran game because you could just see the progression that was happening. And he showed it to us again this week. So you look at their 3 out of the last 4 weeks, I think, or 4 out of the last 5. Who have they beaten? They've beaten the 49ers. They beat the Bills. I can't remember who it was before the Bills. Seahawks. And you just see that progression. You see the team is looking scarier by the week. We talked about that play against your 49ers, Jay, where he had about 5 different people have their hands on him at different points through it before completing the pass. And then you see against the Bills, there was a play where, again, he's getting it with his legs. He's showing his athleticism, which is not something that we usually associate with Joe Burrow. It's usually grit, like the Tebow determination, if you want to say, where he gets teams to win. That's the only comparison I'm using with Tebow because there is no other comparison to use. But and the arm talent of whoever you want to call, whether you want to say Mahomes, whether you want to say Rodgers, he's on a par with them in terms of his ability. I love him as a player. I don't see any weakness. His only weakness is staying healthy. The last 3 years, there's been issues at the beginning of every year. I don't know what he does in his off season. He's whatever it is, you need to wrap him up in cotton wool because it's a theme now. Every year they start slowly, and he's got an injury, recovering from a surgery, whatever it may be. But yeah, what a game we've got coming up this week again with the Bengals playing Stroud Burrow. What a matchup! Loving that. And I think one more week of magic from Burrow, and I can see him taking over the number 1 spot almost by default, just because this is no hit on Mahomes. He's becoming more and more like Allen, and it's very concerning because whereas Mahomes has the defense to sort of bail him out a little bit, he's still having to force things on the offense because if you take Kelsey out of it, he's got nothing. I do like the look of Rice. I do think if given time, Rice will be a good second option wide receiver, like a juiced up Juju. I think he could be a better version of Juju, but he needs that time. He's got to get into the flow of NFL games and understand how the offense is going to work. I'm just really pissed off that they haven't took a wide receiver to help because it was just such an obvious need from week 1. And he's having to force it. He did make some bad decisions last week and this week, which you even mentioned it, Paul, where he needs to focus on the game and not the refs. But it must be stressful. You're an elite player. Your defense, it's usually the opposite. The offense have always been bailing out the defense, right? Where it's the other way around now, and it must be incredibly frustrating. So he's still my number 1 by default, but I think that might change next week, so we'll see. But that's my top 5: Stroud, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes. Paul, do you want to give us your top 5?
Okay, so I had a look at my top 5s from earlier in the year, and I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy with how I had them. So this is going to be a case of see who's missing from my top 5, because there's a couple of names that you might know that don't make it into my top 5. So it's a bit of a different look, but here we go. Number 5, I have Trevor Lawrence, who is very, very good at quarterback, and I don't think gets the credit that he deserves in Jacksonville. They're a good team, Jacksonville, but he has got a laser for an arm. He's huge as well. You don't think he doesn't look huge on the screen, but he's an absolute monster of a man. And yeah, his performances when he's got it together, Jacksonville have suddenly climbed up the rankings. Now they're top of their division. They're going to win their division. They're going to get a home playoff game. They're going to be a problem in the AFC for whoever they come up against. And he's had some big wins, Trevor Lawrence. Okay, he dropped that game earlier in the season to Mahomes and the Chiefs. But since then, he's beaten Josh Allen. He went into New Orleans and beat them. He went into Pittsburgh, which they're not a great offensive team, my Steelers, but they confuse you on the defensive sides. He won that game, handled the Steelers. Trevor Lawrence is my number 5. I'm doing it based on performances that I've seen so far this year, not on Josh Allen is a specimen, but performance, I'm just going to give it to, he was beaten by Trevor Lawrence in the head-to-head, so I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence, number 5. Number 4 is Jay's best friend and rookie quarterback sensation, CJ Stroud. This team is centered around him. He's pretty much, like we said earlier on, the running back went down. He won this game. The whole game was on this young rookie's shoulders. And it's not just this week. He's had some big wins earlier this season. For a rookie to do this with a defensive head coach in DeMeco Ryans. So it's not like he's got a quarterback guru or an offensive mind like a McVay or O'Connell or something as his head coach. No, he's got a defensive head coach. He's got kind of shaky O-line and Tank Dell as his main weapon at wide receiver. And the numbers and the yards that he is putting up, massively impressive. And the kid's only going to get better. This is year 1. Like, what's he going to be in the future? Number 3, Joe Burrow. Rest of the NFL need to watch out because Joe's coming and I can't wait for him to play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson because that is old school, like their offense against your defense. Like who's gonna snap first? Like Rob said, he seems to have the first month of the season off as a bit of like we're just getting going. But this year he was hurt. He's now healthy. He's got weapons. He's got a monster arm. He's elusive in the pocket. He's got a massively intelligent brain. And he's got a very good defense now. They're in Cincinnati. They're a huge problem for the rest of the AFC. I've said it the last 2 weeks, and it's only seeming to get worse for Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, Kansas, Jacksonville, all of these teams.
The coach as well, I think, Paul, I think the coach goes unnoticed. He's been a good coach now for a few years and doesn't have any of these fireworks like some of the others.
Yeah, because I think we put it on Joe Burrow. We say, oh, it's Joe making the throw, not the coach and the scheme putting him in the best position to be successful. And I think we forget because they got Joe Burrow because of their record when he was head coach. And what did they have? 2-3 wins in order to get the number 1 pick. He was the head coach on that terrible team. That's the blueprint for, your Giants, your Cardinals, whoever it is. That's how quick the NFL can turn. The Bengals were absolutely shocking. And then they were the worst team in football, drafted Burrow, Chase, and away you go. And they're going to be a problem for the rest of the year. Number 2, just based on what he does and how he devastates teams, is Lamar Jackson. The Ravens ran for 298 yards against the Seahawks. The Seahawks apparently have quite a good defense. And quite a lot of those yards were with Lamar Jackson. Teams don't know how to play him. That stat that he's 18-1 against the NFC, as in, to translate that, teams that see him once every 4 years. Can you imagine turning up to play Lamar Jackson once every 4 years and just going, well, I don't know how to play this guy. Like, are they running? Are they throwing? If I rush him, then he'll just run past me. If we play coverage, then he'll run. If we try and blitz him, then he'll throw. They've got so many different ways to beat teams. And it just seems that the AFC teams who at least see him more often at least know, or at least have an idea how to stop him. But yeah, the Ravens are just a devastating team, and their defense, I think, is probably the best in the NFL at the moment. So yeah, like I said, I'm really looking forward to that matchup. Ravens-Bengals upcoming round 2 with Burrow healthy. Huge matchup. Number 1, it was close. I was tempted to drop him, but it is still Patrick Mahomes. And like we said, he overcomes things. And watching the game against the Dolphins, Jay said that the Dolphins D played well. I agree. They did play extremely well. They doubled and took away Kelsey. He still found a way to win the game in the moment. And what I was struck by watching it was how calm he is. Not how calm he was when he was shouting at the refs for every single possible flag that he could get for his team, which is frustrating to watch, but how calm he is in the pocket, in the face of the rush, how he just sidesteps, moves side to side to create angles, to get throws, and he'll get out of the play if it's not there. The comparison, him, how calm, to Tua is just night and day. That's the quarterback that I want in the big moment. And Tua is the quarterback that showed me in the big moment it's too much for him. So Mahomes is still my number 1.
Lovely. Good stuff. And Jay, your top 5.
Yeah, so there's a few quarterbacks now that are sort of sitting outside of this top 5 looking in. And I'm going to name just a few. You've got Tua, who has now dropped out. You've got Justin Herbert, who has previously been on the list. You've got Trevor Lawrence, who's having a very strong season. All of those 3 have something in common. They have a great supporting cast, which is not what I can say about my number 5 quarterback, and it is my man, C.J. Strikes. 14-1 touchdown interception ratio. He is top 5 in passer rating. As I said before, we're seeing a rookie season from this quarterback that might be up there with the very best seasons. And I say that because, like, often rookie quarterbacks don't have a great season, or they don't play. Mahomes played 1 game. Rodgers sat for 3 years. Burrow played 8 games before getting injured. Josh Allen was erratic, is what I can say about his throwing in year 1, which shows you how far he's come. You have to kind of look at, I guess, Dak Prescott's season. That was a good rookie season, but he had prime Ezekiel Elliott, their O-line at their absolute best, and a defense that could make plays.
That was probably the best O-line in the history that I've ever watched in football, that Cowboys O-line.
One of the all-times. You know, you think you had Tyron Smith, Frederick, and Zach Martin, a young Zach Martin that was already all-pro.
Yeah.
And then if you go back further, we're sort of looking at Andrew Luck. RG3 had an amazing rookie season. It's on that kind of trajectory right now. Like, he he's gone into, like, let's think, what are his statement victories? That was a statement, like last Sunday.
Smash Steelers D. For any rookie quarterback, that's not the norm. A bit like Belichick with rookie quarterbacks, Tomlin will find a way to confuse you, looks that you've never seen before. And what was the score? Like 34?
It was above. Yeah,
30.
they absolutely laid it on the Steelers.
And what I will reiterate, which I've said in the past, is we're not throwing like screens and someone's taking it 60 yards to the house. We're throwing downfield like a lot. And this isn't a criticism, but if you look at the way that he holds the football, it looks like he's going to drop it. Like when he's throwing it, like it's really, I don't know if it's just me, but it's a very kind of unique way that he's throwing it. But man, he throws lasers. I mean, like I said, his name's CJ Strikes for a reason, because he's throwing downfield and he's controlled with it. You know, what we saw from another guy, Will Levis, in week one, in his first start, it was brilliant. But like he was throwing the deep ball like every other play. CJ Stroud is very controlled with it. He rarely makes a bad decision. And yeah, we're seeing that in the numbers as well. I mean, touchdown to interception ratio, 14-1. And he's here because of the degree of difficulty. Every quarterback has a different level of difficulty. Some have got it really good. Some have got it really bad. He's not got it really good. He probably hasn't got it really bad, but it's on that lower scale compared to others. So CJ Stroud deserves to be number 5. At number 4, this might be surprising, but it is Joe Burrow, someone that, as Paul said, is coming. He continues to just get better and better. But I'm looking at the whole season, and what I've seen is 2 outstanding performances in the last 2 weeks. He had a great game against the Cardinals as well, don't get me wrong. But in the other games, I haven't seen that same level of play in typical Joe Burrow fashion. He starts slow and he gets stronger and stronger. And he's not number 4 to me in totality of the NFL. He's just number 4 through these 8 or 9 weeks. That's all. And he's come through adversity with his calf injury. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to keep climbing this list. But, you know, I just want to see a few more performances to justify it. That's all. That's just for me. But yeah, I mean, again this week, national stage against the Bills. I don't think the Bills are a great team, but at the end of the day, it is a big matchup. And of course, Joe Burrow turns up from, I mean, the first drive, you know, near perfect drive. At that point, I'm watching it thinking, the Bills are not coming back from this. And they never did. So Joe Burrow, yeah, you are number 4 through 9 weeks, not 4, you know, in my eyes, truly. And I know that you will continue to rise through this ladder. At number 3, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. As Paul said, teams just don't know how to play this guy. He must be a nightmare to plan for if you don't see him twice a year like the Steelers. I mean, it probably is still a nightmare for the Steelers and the Browns and the Bengals, but at least they've got more familiarity about it. I mean, when he's throwing like this, and I know the numbers aren't 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a lot of the time, it's just so difficult to beat because you have to account for the passing. But then, of course, he, in my view, is an all-time runner as well. So, yes, he's not running as much, and I definitely want to see him run more. It's the same thing I've said with Josh Allen. I want you to run. I just don't want you to take contact. That, you know, it's too extreme. oh, we'll let him loose. He can do all the running he wants. Okay, then he gets injured. All right, well, we're not going to run at all. But then you lose the essence of what makes him magical. Yeah, I mean, he exudes exactly what the Ravens are about. They get the job done, and seemingly they're getting the job done quickly. So yeah, he stays at number 3. And I mean, I feel like a broken record with 1 and 2. I feel like we're seeing the same season now from both of these players. It is Josh Allen at 2 still. It is Mahomes at 1 still. They're not playing to their absolute maximum because they can't with what's around them. I don't know what else I can say. Josh Allen, let's start with him. He didn't do a lot wrong. He had the interception, but the Bengals didn't turn it into anything, so it didn't really hurt them. It was an elite night of running around for Gabriel Davis, who had no catches. I don't know what to say. They found a tight end, in Kincaid, who still fumbled in the biggest moment of the game. Yeah, I mean,
he was their leading rusher as well. Again, Josh Allen.
No run game. It will be difficult, I think, for Mahomes and Allen to stay at 1 and 2 if this continues. And I say that because at the end of the day, it is that we're looking at performances, right? I can't just say, well, Mahomes doesn't have the supporting cast and Josh Allen doesn't have the supporting cast. But overall, with the season, they still had really good seasons. Yes, they're both throwing a lot of interceptions. They're also throwing a lot of touchdowns. They're also throwing for a lot of yards. And as we're seeing with and Mahomes, they're also running for a lot of yards as well. Yeah, I don't have much more to say other than I am so disappointed in the Chiefs and I'm so disappointed in the Bills for allowing this to happen. You've taken your quarterbacks for granted, and I think you're both going to get punished for it this year. So yeah, Josh Allen at 2, Mahomes at 1 for now.
Nice one. Thanks for that, Jay. I have to say I agree that I do think both teams will get punished later on this year and regret not adding reinforcements before the trade deadline. So that's our top 5 quarterbacks for week 9. So going into our top 5 teams now. So I'll kick us off. Number 5, I have gone with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, they were on a bye last week, but looking at their body of work this year, I believe they have made that next step so far. Very well balanced team. Trevor Lawrence and the team both separately have made a step, in my opinion. I like the play calling. I was a bit concerned with their play calling in the London game against the Falcons, but that was probably just because they were thinking, we don't turn the ball over, we don't lose. Simple as that. And it won them the game. So I can't deny it was not the right way to approach the game. And then the week after against the Bills, the whole playbook just completely expanded and the offense looked a lot more electric. Josh Allen on defense is playing elite. Lawrence, Etienne, Kirk, Ridley, they've got a lot of pieces, a coach that has been there and done that. And I'm looking forward to watching this team for the rest of the year because I feel they can tough games out with their D. If Lawrence isn't throwing it on all cylinders, the D can keep him in the game. That's what they had many years ago where the defense kept them in games. Unfortunately, the offense was nothing like what it is now. Otherwise, they would have been Super Bowl winners, in my opinion, comfortably. But yeah, I've got them number 5 because I think they're a well-balanced team. They're still missing something for me. They're not at the level of other teams in my top 5, but we're only halfway through. They can still get there, so we'll see how things go. But for now, they're number 5. Number 4, I've kept the 49ers in there. So 49ers for me are at number 4. I'm trying not to get too carried away with a few bad results. Injuries have played a part in that. Some a missed kick, really, like it was a chip shot, and then maybe all wouldn't have been as bad. They'd had one extra win. They still have a great coach. They still have probably top 2, top 3, number 1 in terms of running backs that offer the catching out the backfield and the running game. But just in pure running backs alone, he's probably top 2 or 3. In McCaffrey, I've got a top tight end in Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, your man, is it Jennings, third down specialist. And you've added Chase Young. These are to go with Bosa and Hargraves. You've got Trent Williams, left tackle. Like, you've got so many quality players. You have a great front 7. When we get to Christmas, when we get to December time, when we get to January, that your defensive front is what will separate the Miamis of this world and the Philadelphia Eagles, the San Francisco 49ers. We see it every year. It's no shock anymore. And I'm confident the 49ers will get back to something like the team we saw in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the year. Number 3, I've gone with the Ravens at number 3. Could have put them at 2. I could have put them at 1. Like anywhere in the top 3, you could put them. The reason I've gone with number 3 is I just like the other 2 teams more when it comes to winning the Super Bowl in terms of the next level they can take it. Not in terms of maybe where they are this week. If we're looking purely on week 9, probably I'd say, yeah, they could be number 1. But I see them pretty much at their peak right now. I don't see them getting much better than where they are. My 1 and 2 teams, I see getting a lot more room for improvement from them. But everything about the Ravens, the D, special teams, coaching, quarterback, running game, this is playoff football. You need a D that's going to stand up. You need to be able to run the ball, because in the next few weeks, you're going to be playing in conditions where you're not going to be able to throw the ball. Let's see how Lamar does then, when it's a bit more obvious that there's going to be more runs coming as opposed to having the RPO option. But yeah, for me, they're number 3. Number 2, I've gone with the Bengals. And I did almost, a bit like the quarterbacks, I might already be getting a bit carried away, but I almost put them at number 1. But I've kept them at number 2 purely because it's a bit early to go that high, that quick. But I touched upon it with the quarterbacks. They've got the D now to match the offense. They've got the weapons on that offense that they've even got a tight end, and I can't remember his name. God, he's fast. And he's a rookie that they've got, and he seems to be getting more targets every week. And I'll have to find out his name. But him to go alongside Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Boyd, and you've got Joe Mixon, who's just the workhorse. Again, this is the running back that you need. You need someone that can just keep the defense on guard, keep them on their toes to open up the play action. And then I've said it about Joe Burrow. Yeah, he'll pull it off when it matters, in December, in January, and I think he'll pull it off in February as well. There you go. That's a little teaser there for later on. Number 1, I've gone with the Eagles, and it was a closer game than I thought it would be. And I say that because I didn't think the Cowboys would look as good as they did in that game, because what can you sort of guarantee with the Cowboys? That Dak will usually fold under the pressure in a big game. Fair play to him. He actually didn't do too bad on Sunday. I like to rip him when he doesn't do it, but I've got to give him his due on Sunday. He stayed in there longer than I thought, and it made it a closer game. But you look at this Eagles team, we say it week in, week out, they are everything that you want in a team and everything that you don't want to face in a team when you're coming in on your Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whenever it may be. You know, as a defense, right, they got 3rd and long, they get it to 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You're not celebrating that you've just got them a 3 and out. You're thinking, oh shit, they're about to do the tush push, and it's only been stopped once this year, and that was because he fumbled it, not because they actually stopped him from going the distance. So I look at that and I just think they did it with the Cowboys. I think it was the first or maybe the second drive. They were on their own 25, 35, like they were inside their own 30, and they went for it on 4th and 1. There was no doubt. They knew that even this very good Cowboys D-line wouldn't be able to stop it. And it wasn't close. They didn't need to take a measurement from it. It was comfortable. And again, these are the things. Imagine how many of them Dolphins drives, let's say, or the Chiefs drive, but let's say Dolphins because they were coming back from 21-0 down, where if they would have just that 3rd down where they don't quite make it. Imagine if you give them 1 4th down or 2, 1.5. They're probably getting points from that. And that's what this Eagles team will give you every single game, a minimum of 6 points every game that other teams wouldn't get. So I almost look at it like they're getting a 6-point advantage. AJ Brown didn't put up 125 yards for the first game in 6 weeks, I believe. Still came up with some big receptions when needed. Hurts, yeah, he actually got hurt, funny enough, at the end of the first half. But again, showed that toughness, which is what I expect from him. Not the most talented quarterback in the league. I don't think anyone falls into that sort of a trap of thinking he's your top 5 quarterback anymore. But what he does bring is that toughness, that leadership, which is, and he gives enough talent. He's got a good enough arm and great legs in terms of strength, not by how they look, in terms of what he brings to the team. So when I look at the Eagles and when I look at the Bengals, I see so much more room for improvement. And I don't see where the Ravens will find that similar improvement. And that's why they're at 3. And that's my top 5. So, Paul, do you want to give us your top 5?
Yeah. Okay. So my top 5, I'm going with what teams I would rank as beating each other, as in my top 2, I would have as my Super Bowl matchup at the moment. So number 5, I have San Francisco. A few weeks ago, this team beat Dallas 42-10. And we saw what Dallas did to the Eagles, or nearly did to the Eagles. San Francisco have just had a bit of a wobble. They've gone through their bye. Coming out the other side of the bye, I think this team's going to get going now and come again. The Seahawks are having their moment. The Seahawks got absolutely butt whooped by the Ravens. And I think the Seahawks are now just they're going to submit to the Niners in this division. The Niners are going to win this division, and they're going to be a problem in the playoffs moving forward. Talent they have, ridiculous, San Francisco. So if their players have used this bye to get healthy, I see them moving forward as they're my second best team in the NFC. So they're my number 5. Number 4, Kansas City, dropping to number 4. Watching the game this weekend, they worried me, not because of their defensive scheme that I've given massive credit to, but they don't have many options moving the ball, especially when you take away Travis Kelce, as we saw this past week. They're clever enough to find ways. Well, Mahomes is clever enough to find ways. But I think they might run into problems moving forward in the AFC. As Rob said, there's some very talented teams in the AFC, but Mahomes is going to have to play incredible, I think, to come out of the AFC this year. And he's capable of doing it, but this isn't the best team or even close to the best team that he's been on. So I've got the Chiefs at number 4. Number 3, I have Cincinnati. They are a very, very, very talented team. And they have now defense to go along with the talent that they have in moving the ball. Joe Mixon has decided that he's actually got a bit of burst, and he's actually rediscovered that he's got some speed. That's a problem. They didn't used to have any speed at all. Joe Mixon just used to crash into the line for like -1 yard or like a 2-yard gain. Now they can actually hurt you in running the ball as well as the passing game. Yeah, the Bengals are. I really think they're a massively talented team. They were my Super Bowl pick before the season, and they're just getting going. And yeah, they're number 3. Ravens are number 2. They're just an absolute nightmare to play against because there's so many different things to defend, and their defense now, they've just got it's not like an Eagles kind of level of D-line, but they've got some big dudes on their D-line that just are like space invader, big men who just take up space, take up blocks. And what that allows them to do is then you've got Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen who are just set. You don't have to worry about anything, guys. You just run and hit people because you don't have to worry about linemen coming off, because our D-line are just going to dominate their O-line and the linebackers just run around and make plays. They've got that safety in Hamilton who just plays down now in the box, plays down on the line of scrimmage. Like, the Ravens D is very, very good. I've said it before, I'm really looking forward to Ravens-Bengals round 2 coming up. Like, that's going to be a huge, huge game. Number 1, similar to the Ravens, the Eagles, absolute nightmare to play against. Dallas played, I thought, like a really, really impressive game. And credit to Dak Prescott. In the moment, he didn't shrink. But what they didn't account for is that you've got similar, like I said with the Ravens, they've got all those dudes on the D-line, and then they rotate their guys on the D-line, and then Brandon Graham, who's not even a starter, comes and sacks Prescott to win the game in the moment, because they've got all that talent on D-line. They just keep coming at you and keep coming at you. And like I said earlier in the year, eventually they'll wear you down because you can't keep blocking those dudes for that long. Like Rob said, they'll push you. They'll kind of steal possessions that other teams can't. So they continue to possess the ball, and then they just keep coming at you with their defensive D-line guys. They're not great in the secondary, but they do what is necessary. They do just enough. And yeah, the Cowboys should have won that game, but the Eagles have been there, and they're smarter in the moment. And when it came down to Dallas driving down the field to win the game, they have penalty and then sack, because the Eagles have those guys on the D-line who win them those games in those moments. So nightmare to play against Philadelphia Eagles. They're my number 1 team.
Nice one. Thanks for that, Paul. And Jay, want to give us your top 5?
Yep. So one team dropped out of the top 5 and one team came into the top 5. My number 5 is the Jaguars. So a team dropped underneath the Jaguars and a team also jumped over the Jaguars. They were my number 5 last week. I think, Rob, you summed it up perfectly. They're really balanced. It is a young team, but I mean, there's not many, I want to say, like big threes, if you like, better than ETN, Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, and that's just 3 of them. They've got plenty of weapons. I agree, though. I still feel like there's something missing to take them to another level, because I've said it before. I feel like we're still in that zone where we're seeing too many drives come to an end with a field goal rather than a touchdown. It's happening less. Don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning their execution, but I just feel like for them to become a really elite team, like some of the ones above them right now, I just need to see them finish off these offensive drives a bit more, shall we say, because they're doing really well. They'll have a great spell in a game where suddenly they're up 20, but they're not quite finishing those games off. And for instance, the Saints game is a prime example. That should have been a 30-point blowout. In the end, a few mistakes mean that they're holding on at the end. And, you know, it's a young team. As I said, this is where growth has to happen. But they're going to win the division 6-2. They've got a big one this week. So they have to prove to me that they deserve to stay in the top 5 by beating this team, because if they lose, this team might be back in the top 5 next week. And of course, I'm talking about my San Francisco 49ers. So that is a great game to look forward to. At number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs won but dropped down again. They won the week before. No, they lost the week before. Yeah. They've dropped kind of from number 2 to number 3 to now number 4. I am losing faith in them. Defensively, they've played very well. But as I said earlier, I feel like there was a bit of a blueprint there from the Dolphins. Double Kelsey out of the game. Yes, Mahomes will still make some plays. Yes, Rashid Rice is up and coming. They have other guys that will make the odd play here and there. But for a whole game, if you don't have Kelsey, I mean, their next game, I think they're on the bye this week. Their next game is the Philadelphia Eagles. I wonder what the Eagles are going to do with Kelsey. We'll have to wait and see. They are 7-2. It is still the great Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid have major question marks about.
Sorry, Jay. I think we might have just lost Paul.
I froze. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, you're still there. Okay, sorry, Adrian.
Yeah, I froze for a while. My internet was just thinking about it, but
okay. Cool. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Go on then. As long as we can hear you're there, that's fine.
Yeah. There we go. I can see you again.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So Chiefs at 4. I'm really struggling to see how they get better. They are getting the job done defensively, really good. McDuffie, outstanding season. It just doesn't feel like enough, though. It doesn't feel like enough, and I guess we'll find out a lot when they play the Eagles in 2 weeks. At number 3, it's been a long time coming. They are now in the top 5. It is the Cincinnati Bengals. This, for me, is the most dangerous team in the NFL, and I'm going to explain why. With most teams in the NFL, they are elite at something. So we've got teams where we have an elite quarterback, but our supporting cast is average, i.e. the Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills. We also have teams that have elite rosters. maybe not average quarterbacks, but not elite quarterbacks. And I'm talking about the San Francisco 49ers, maybe the Eagles, the Dolphins. They've got unbelievable rosters, but they don't have that special quarterback. This Bengals team has an elite roster, and they have an elite quarterback, and they have the highest ceiling in the NFL today, if they can put it all together. Let's look at the offense. Burrow is on, and when he is on, he's unstoppable. It certainly helps to have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, the tight end that Rob was talking about, Joe Mixon. Wow. That is an unstoppable offense when they are going. Defensively, I feel like they sometimes play almost like 5 defensive linemen. And when you see that front, you can't run on that. And that gives me a slight thought to pause about what we might see if we get Eagles versus Bengals. I'm not sure if that is on the schedule this year. It might not need to be. But yeah, this, we've seen in the last 2 weeks, big occasions, they rise to them. They are 5-1 against the Chiefs and the Bills combined over the last few years in the sort of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow era. They've got it. They know how to win big games. And again, I have no doubt that they're sitting at 3, but I see them rising. The team that's standing in their way right now at number 2 is the Baltimore Ravens, who have become the NFC exposers. We all said at the start of the year we didn't think the NFC was very strong. And then we've seen teams such as the Seahawks, the Lions, on the up, no doubt about it. Not going to disregard that they have improved, but they are not elite. And that's what the Ravens have shown us. There's teams out here that look like they're coming up, and the Ravens are saying, welcome to elite football. It is not you yet. I think that their offense can get better. I'm not saying it will get better. We're still very early on in this new Todd Monken era, if you like. I would like to see Lamar run more. I have a slight issue to raise this week, and it is with Odell Beckham Jr. You are playing for the Baltimore Ravens. You are not playing for the Baltimore Beckham Juniors. It is not about you. He made a very dumb play at the end of the first half where he was trying to make a play, where the Seahawks had a 50-yard game with DK Metcalf, and they had to settle for a field goal. There was plenty of time on the clock for the Ravens to just score a field goal, maybe even a touchdown. Lamar throws it to Odell. He so casually just holds it with one hand. He's getting tackled. He tries to spin around out of it. The ball gets knocked out of his hands. It's a fumble. We saw last week against the Cardinals, they were up double digits, and he failed to get a touchdown. And on the sideline, he slammed his helmet down. This is not about you. This is about the Ravens. This is a potential distraction. They got him his touchdown on his birthday, which he was very happy about in garbage time. I don't like what I'm seeing from this, and we'll have to see how this develops. But in totality, defensively, as I said last week, they are top 2 in both scoring and yards allowed. Not the household names that, many shows would want to talk about, but as Paul said, these are big human beings that can move lots of weight and they can fill up lots of space, and you do not want to play against them. They've got lots of talent in the second level and the third level. It's a team that I think can get better. I'm not saying they will, but I think there is a higher ceiling for them, which means for a third week in a row at number one, it is fly, Eagles, fly. There is almost a sense for me of inevitability that this could be their year. Another game in which it goes to the wire, and guess who wins? The team that know how to win these ugly games, and this is only going to help when we get to January. They look like at times they have no idea how to stop the pass, but when it comes down to the critical moments, they get the job done. Offensively, DeAndre Swift is top 3 in rushing yards this year. We didn't even blink an eye about him before he joined the Eagles, and it just speaks to how good they are, on offense with their scheme. It's not the most exciting offense to watch, in my opinion, but it's effective. It's efficient overall. Yes, they have the odd fumble, the odd interception, the odd pick six, but they've got too many weapons. The offensive line is still very good. I just don't know what more I can say about them other than they're not playing anywhere near their full potential, in my opinion. And if they do, I only see one winner this year. So Eagles stay at number one for me.
Nice one. Thanks for that, Jay. On the point I was saying about the tight end, it isn't a tight end for the Bengals. It was another wide receiver that they've got, Andre Iosivas, that he runs a 4-3, and he's already caught 2 touchdowns from Burrow. So he's one.
Fourth option.
Yeah, not too bad. 4th option, someone that runs a 4-3. And he's from Princeton, so he obviously has some intelligence about him to run the route tree. So let's see how he does over the second half of the year. So that's, our top 5 teams through week 9 going into week 10. So now we're going to go through our mid-season playoff predictions. We did it at the beginning of the year, and now with half the season gone. Some teams have let us down. Some teams have performed above what we expected. All 3 of us will give us our views on AFC, NFC divisional winners, wildcard teams, AFC and NFC champ games, and Super Bowl matchup alongside the winner. So, Paul, do you want to kick us off with your AFC divisional winners and wildcard selections?
Okay, so at the start of the season, I'll just summarize who I had and then what I'm going with now. So at the start of the season, I think I had the Bills winning the AFC East, Chiefs in the West, Bengals in the North, and Jaguars in the South. I'm only going to change the Bengals for the Ravens. I think the Ravens will stay at top of the AFC North. They've got the head-to-head over Cincinnati already, that tiebreaker. And the return matchup is in Baltimore, which I think is big. I could see that's one thing moving forward that I think is a problem for the AFC North, is that they're going to beat up on each other because there's not easy games for them. The Browns and Steelers aren't going to do anything in the playoffs, but they're capable of beating the Ravens and the Bengals in a one-off game because they know each other so well. They're my division winners. And then the AFC title game I would be the Bengals coming through as a wild card, beating I think they'll beat the Ravens if they can't meet each other for that AFC title game to happen. But Bengals over Ravens, AFC title game. NFC, I had a bit of a shocker. I predicted that the Packers would somehow pull out the NFC North. I think I'm going to change that. Other 3, and I had the Falcons in the NFC South. The other two I'm going to keep. I had Eagles winning the East, keep that. 49ers winning the West, keep that. North, I'm going to change to the Lions. I'm very impressed with the Lions overall. But they're not going to do a whole lot in the playoffs, but they'll win the division. NFC South, just by default, I think that the Saints will hold on. The Buccaneers are kind of falling apart now. And the Falcons, absolutely terrible to lose that game to the Vikings, as Rob was talking earlier on. Like, absolutely shocking. Falcons are going to fall apart now. Saints will win that by default. NFC title game, boring but predictable, and I do see it coming, is Eagles 49ers rematch in Philadelphia. But I'm giving it to San Francisco this time, because I'm gonna hope that they come together health-wise for that matchup. They've got the D-line to cause Eagles problems if they can just use the rest of the year to just come up with a few more intelligent plays. I've said before, their D coordinator, their new D coordinator, Steve Wilkes, needs to step it up. He needs to actually create some plays, more intelligent plays. But Niners beat the Eagles, NFC title game, and the Bengals beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with the Super Bowl that I had. I was worried, but now Joe Burrow's woken up. He had the first month off, like I said, and he's coming. He's coming.
All right, good stuff. So with my AFC, at the beginning of the year, I had Bengals winning the AFC North. I had the Jets winning the AFC East. I had Jags in the South and Chiefs in the West. So clearly my AFC East has been slightly skewiffed with the Rodgers injury in game one. I'm going with Miami to win the AFC East. Reason being is they're 2 games ahead of everyone at this moment in time. There's enough mediocre teams that they're going to play that they will beat either in a dome or at home to stay ahead of the Bills. I don't see the Bills putting on a charge like other teams have done in previous years. The Jets, Monday's game showed us that that's not happening under Zach Wilson. And the Pats are the Pats. That nothing needs to be said about them. AFC North, I've changed it from the Bengals to the Ravens. I did have Ravens as number 2 before the year. Didn't account for the start being that bad for the Bengals. But Ravens to win the North. AFC South, I'm sticking with the Jags. And AFC West, I'm sticking with the Chiefs. Looking on to the NFC, I had Eagles to win the East. I had in the North, Vikings winning that. But I did have them with a tie with the Lions, both at 12 and 5. But I'm changing that now to put Lions at number 1. Then NFC South, I had, let me see who I had on the NFC South. I had New Orleans, so I will stick with the Saints. And NFC West, I had the 49ers, which I'm going to stick with. Wildcard teams, Bengals, Bills, and Chargers, I'm going to go with from the AFC. And on the NFC, my 3 wildcard teams will be Seattle, Dallas, and I can't remember the other wildcard team I had. So I'll skip that one for now because I can't see it. But looking on to my matchups, the AFC Championship game, I am going with Bengals and the Ravens, exactly the same as Paul. What a game that's going to be. Obviously, be played in Baltimore. The Bengals never like to make life easy for themselves. When they've had to play the Chiefs in previous years, it's been in Kansas City. I see them going into Kansas the week before this and winning. and I see them going into Baltimore and winning to get to the Super Bowl. NFC title game, exactly the same as Paul. I've got the San Francisco 49ers playing Philadelphia Eagles. I've got this being in Philadelphia. However, I have the Eagles winning a very close game. I want the 49ers to win, but I just feel being able to continue them drives is going to take its toll throughout a 60-minute game in a playoff situation. So I'm going with a playoff, the Super Bowl of Bengals against the Eagles, and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow getting the MVP, and that will be the final year of this Bengals team as we see it currently structured. And that is my pick for this year. Jay, who have you got?
Very good, guys. Very good. So in the AFC East, I had the Bills winning it. I now have the Dolphins winning the division. By default, basically, the Dolphins are ahead, and they've got a lot of easy-ish games coming. The Bills have got quite a lot of difficult games coming. Eagles, Chiefs. I just don't believe in them as much as I believe in in Josh Allen. I don't believe in the team, and I think this needs to be McDermott's last season. AFC North, I had the Ravens winning the division, and I still have the Ravens winning the division. In 2 weeks' time, though, it is Ravens-Bengals. That's a massive game, because if the Ravens win it, that will likely put them 3.5 games ahead. If they lose it, well, that division's wide open again. Mm-hmm. AFC South, Jaguars was my pick. It's still my pick. AFC West, the Chiefs. By default, it will still be the Chiefs. My wildcard teams were Bengals, Jets, Steelers. I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to say this is the year that it happens. The AFC North are going to the playoffs. Steelers, Browns, Bengals, they will be the 3 wildcard teams this year. I don't think the Bills will make the playoffs. NFC East, I had the Eagles. I still have the Eagles. NFC North, I also had a shocker here. Like Paul, I had the Packers. I now have the Lions. I would have been interested to see what my thought would have been if our good friend Kirk Cousins was still playing. But it will be the Lions. Very impressed with them. NFC South, I had the Falcons. I've lost total faith in the Falcons. The Saints have got quite an easy run. The Saints will win it by default. And NFC West, the 49ers were my pick. The 49ers are still my pick. Wildcards, I had Cowboys, Seahawks, and Vikings. And I think I'm going to stick. I think the Vikings might just sneak in because it's kind of Vikings, Commanders, Falcons. Could be
bad, isn't it? Like,
but Josh Dobbs, wow. Why does he, where has he come from? They do get Jefferson back. So, that's going to be massive for them. So interestingly, before the season, my AFC championship was Bengals at Ravens. And I am sticking with that. And I said on our very first podcast, the Bengals will go into Baltimore and they will beat the Ravens to make the Super Bowl. And I am sticking with that. On the NFC side, didn't have such a good feel because I went on the basis that I thought something would happen to the Eagles because history has shown if you reach the Super Bowl and lose, you don't tend to get back the following year. So by default alone, I said the NFC Championship would be Cowboys 49ers. I'm clearly changing that. It's going to be 49ers at Eagles, and I think the Eagles will win pretty comfortably. So that does mean I am making a change to my Super Bowl because I had 49ers beating the Bengals. I now have the Eagles beating the Bengals. And I think it will be a very good Super Bowl if that happens. There's just a sense of inevitability for me at the moment that it might just be the Eagles' year. So that is my revised pick.
Definitely feels that way. But yeah, it's good to see from all three of us. Most of our divisional winners have been pretty accurate. We've all had one or two shockers in our predictions, but overall, not too bad. So I think we can give ourselves a pat on the back for that. So that's our predictions for, let's see, over the next 9 weeks, what happens there. Going into game picks. Now, before we do that, where do we stand, Jay? After 9 weeks, it was a bit of a hammering in them early games, I know, for most of us. But overall, how did it go?
So Paul had a great week. He was 10-4. We didn't have a bad week considering the start. We went 8-6, so we're above 500. So the standings are as follows. Paul, you're definitely closing the gap. 83 wins, 53 losses. That is a 61% win rate. Rob, you are on 85 wins and 51 losses. That's a 62.5% win rate. And I'm staying on top with 87 wins, 49 losses. That's a 64% win rate. So we're all in the 60 club. And we are still head and shoulders above our friends at ESPN and NBC.
ESPN, it's not even close.
Not even close.
I think Florio is the only one that is probably close to us. Maybe this week just gone, he had a very good week, if I remember right.
Florio is a game ahead of me. I matched him this past week. He was a game ahead. He's still a game ahead of me. So he's splitting me and you, Rob.
Right. So I know he had Tampa Bay. So he almost had an even better week. But actually, all of us had Tampa Bay, so it doesn't make a big difference. But yeah, he called some really good games, like pretty much the opposite to my games. And we still finished with a similar record. So yeah, it's not going to get any easier over the next few weeks. So long may it continue. It's good fun. Nice one. Right, so going into game picks for the Thursday night game. Jay, Carolina Panthers at the Chicago Bears. Who are you going with?
I mean, we've actually had a really good Thursday night football run so far.
That's been good.
I suspect it's coming to an end this week. I don't know what to do with this game. I mean, the Bears with Badgett actually gave the Saints a good game. I don't know if that was good Bears or just bad Saints. Panthers are a difficult one because sometimes their defense turns up. That's my only concern.
It's just the turnovers that you can't like predict, isn't it? And Young does like the odd turnover here and there, and it's hard.
Last week. I'm going to go with the Bears. I think. I think there's even a chance that Fields plays. So even if Fields doesn't play, I think I'm going to roll with the Bears. Not a strong opinion on this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm going with the Bears to win this game. Whether it's Badgett or Fields, I like the Bears more than I like the Panthers, but I don't like either team. I'm looking at it as the Bears are going to have home field advantage. not going to be an easy place to go on a Thursday night. It's going to be a little bit chilly in Chicago, which Carolina aren't quite accustomed to in early November, based off of their weather there in Carolina. I like the Bears' performance. The Saints' D is no joke. And at least for the first 2-3 quarters, they did a pretty good job. Badgett looked pretty poised in the pocket as well. And tell you what, from what I've seen, the body of work, I would much rather have him playing for the Jets than Zach Wilson right now. I think he would do a lot more than Zach Wilson. That might be getting a bit ahead of myself, but nothing has changed in my view on Young. I don't see him being an elite quarterback in the NFL. Yes, they have some good pieces on D, and you never know what's going to turn up. But for me, Bears will just have a bit too much. It's not going to be a nice game. I feel it's going to be quite a scrappy game. There's going to be turnovers probably from both teams, and it's just going to come down to who can capitalize off of the mistakes. And I see Badgett or Fields being able to take advantage more so than what Young will be able to do. So I'm going with the Bears to win on Thursday night. Paul, who you got?
Yeah, also Bears. Badgett he's an undrafted free agent who went to Shepherd University, but he's like you said, he's playing better than Zach Wilson, the second overall pick. Yeah, the Bears can run the ball a little bit, and they ran the ball a bit on the Saints, which is fairly hard to do, and it's not hard to run the ball on Panthers. So, yeah, hand the ball off to Deontay Foreman, and Bryce Young will throw you an interception or fumble the ball. Yeah, I think the Bears will win this game. Ugly game, but I think the Bears will win.
Lovely. Houston Texans at the Cincinnati Bengals. Jay, who are you going with? Your man, CJ Strikes, or the informed team of the last couple of weeks?
I do love my man CJ Strikes.
He's going to do it.
This is a bridge too far. It's one thing to torch, and I mean torch, the Buccaneers. This is a completely different test. This, as I said, is the most dangerous team in the NFL. The spread is 6.5, and I think the Bengals will cover it. I think there's just too many weapons. The Texans' defense, it is being coached well, but it's not got the talent, and it's not a good unit. One thing I would say to the Texans this offseason, just get the trenches right, because you need a pass rush. You need to protect CJ Stroud. I think both of those things get exposed in this game. There's just too many weapons. And I think the Bengals defensively will slow CJ Stroud down. It's not going to be a 470 passing yard week this week. Bengals win, and I think they cover.
I'm going to second that, Jay, and I'm after the rain on the Houston parade. So I'm going with the Bengals win, and I'm going with them to cover the spread. You look at the Houston Tampa Bay game. They were playing at home, so they had the home field advantage. You hear lots of people say, "Oh, think how many points they would have had because they were going for 2 each time, and they didn't make a couple. I think they missed 3 2-point plays all in all. So that could have been 3 extra points. I love how they forget how the other end of that went, though, because they had a 4th and 6, it was 4th and goal, but it was 4th and 6, and they were down 2. If they had a kicker, they would have kicked the field goal and gone up 1 point because there was about 4 or 5 minutes left. They went for it, and they got the touchdown, and they got the 2 points after. So that's 8 points. So there's already, okay, if you're going to say about the field goal or the 2-point plays, then take away 5 points for that play as well. And then it becomes a lot more even. I also look at it as the quarterback played a worldly game and they still only won in the last 45 seconds, or actually less than 45 seconds, but they got the ball with 45 seconds left there or thereabouts to win at home. This isn't an elite Tampa Bay team, both on offense and defense. They're not bad, but they're pretty average, maybe just above average, but they're not far above it. This Bengal team is a completely different story. They will light up that secondary. If Mike Evans, Godwin, who's the running back? Was it Rashad White? I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the game, he was lighting it up. And see Burrow's ripping them to pieces. Stroud will make the odd play. Again, he's a very good quarterback, but the D, I think, are better than Tampa Bay. And they're playing in Cincinnati. Again, what do we say every November, December? It's not an enjoyable place to go. It's not sunny like it is in Houston, like it is in Florida. You're not in a dome. You're out in the elements. It's harder to throw in them conditions. Stroud, if anyone is actually able to do it, Stroud played in Ohio, so he knows what it's like. Doesn't mean the other guys on the roster are there. So, yeah, a long way to get to Bengals win, and they cover the spread. Paul, who you got?
Yes, I agree that Cincinnati will win this game. They have to win this game to keep up with Baltimore ahead of their rematch that we've spoken about. Ravens, Bengals coming up in 2 weeks. So they have to have this one against the Texans. Absolutely have to. And they will. The Texans, to me, like, the Bengals show the Texans what they could be in a couple of years if you just make the right decisions personnel wise and get some talent on your roster. Look how quickly the Bengals turned around, and the Texans could go the same way. Protect your quarterback, your investment. He is your future. Protect him with big guys up front. Draft some pass rushers, draft him some receivers, and look how quickly you can turn into the Bengals. So this is a look forward into the future moment, I think, for the Texans. And I hope they don't get crushed too badly. And I hope he doesn't, lose confidence if he does take a big loss. But it's all part of the learning process for this superstar rookie. But they're going to drop this game. Cincinnati, way too talented.
Okay, good stuff. Jay, Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. Who you got?
In Germany.
In Germany.
Yeah.
Well, I don't trust the Patriots. I don't really trust the Colts, though. But I really, really do not trust the Patriots. There's nothing special about them. I don't know what's going to happen in New England when this season's over, but it might as well be over now because the roster's not good. Mac Jones is not good. Your defense is slow. So I think the Colts will probably just do enough. I mean, they've got Jonathan Taylor back. I don't really know if the Patriots can, maybe they can slow him down. But yeah, I'm rolling with Minshew mania. I do think that the Colts have got enough at receiver to cause this Patriots defense enough problems. I don't think this is going to be a very good game for Germany to see. Certainly a bit of a talent disparity from last week. I don't have a passionate view on this game other than I think the Colts will win. The spread, I think, is 1.5. Yeah, the Colts will cover.
So, I look at this game and I think, okay, well, Germany, you managed to get Kansas against Miami. You deserve a crap game. That sucks to watch after how good that game was. Yeah, I look at it, and after I made my pick last week, you probably felt the same, Jay. I was wondering during the game, why did I back Mac Jones over the enemy and Sam Howell? Like when you find yourself asking that question, you realise, right, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. So I have to go with the Colts because I back Minshew more, comfortably more than Mac Jones and the wide receivers. I don't know if Zaire Franklin will be back. That was a bit of a miss last week. I hope he's back because he will make a huge difference on that D. But yeah, I just see the Colts grinding away with the run, which surprisingly they didn't do in the second half of the game against the Panthers. They tried to, but it got stuffed quite in all of the early downs in the second half. But yeah, I've got Colts winning. Horrible game of football. Probably won't watch it because it doesn't appeal to me. It's a heritage game, right? If you go back to early 2000s, New England against the Colts, that was the top game. Your AFC Championship more often than not, most times, or playoff game. But yeah, Colts to win. Paul, who you got?
Yes, I also have the Colts. I think with the Colts, I look at them and I think, what could they have been if the rookie didn't get hurt? Because they're actually very well coached. This young head coach Steichen is pretty good, and he's drawing up some plays. Their running game is very effective. And what could it be with Anthony Richardson at quarterback? That's to look forward to next year. I think the Colts are around for a while, and their weakness is the secondary. New England don't have any speed to expose that. They don't have the receivers to expose that. So I have the Colts winning this game. But yeah, and they should cover. It's 1.5, not enough. They should cover this. But New England are in a world of trouble.
Yep, totally agree. Right, next up, New Orleans Saints at the Minnesota Vikings. Jay, who are you picking? Jefferson is off the IR list as well today.
Wow.
I believe that, right? I'm pretty certain he's back. He's probably going to play on Sunday.
Interesting. I think this would have been a lot easier to pick before last week because the Vikings somehow beat the Falcons. So much for that impact game from Money Heineke. And the Saints struggled against the Bears, which gives me a bit of hesitation. But the Saints have a certain weapon that when he carries the ball 7 or more times, they are 18-1. And I, of course, am talking about Taysom Hill. And I'll give you another one. The only player in the last 50 years that has over 10 passing touchdowns, 10 receiving touchdowns, and 10 rushing touchdowns. That is the NFL equivalent of a triple-double. The Saints should have too much, I think, even with Jefferson. But the Vikings defense is playing well. This is difficult. I'm going to go with the Saints. I think they've got enough. I'm going to give them the quote-unquote benefit of a doubt from last week and say that they will raise their game for the Vikings, because this is, without Kirk Cousins, this is still a very difficult game. I'm very scared about this pick, but I'm going to pick the Saints.
Yeah, this is a horrible game to pick. You look at it on paper and you think Saints have to win this, but especially for the first 3 quarters last week, it felt like the Saints were hanging on against the Bears. It never felt like the Saints were scoring and the Bears were just trying to keep up with them. It was the other way around. Obviously, it finished in favour of the Saints, but that's a concern when you're playing at home to the Bears. I'm going to go with the home team Vikings, but I will caveat that only if Jefferson starts. If he doesn't start, I'm going with the Saints. But from what I've read today, it looks like he's going to be back and playing on Sunday. So if he does start, I'm going to pick the Vikings to win. Just because they're at home. I really like what the defense has done as this year's gone on. They've gone from strength to strength. Dobbs is going to have another week of getting to grips with this offense. Look, I'm not pretending that he's this all-star quarterback who's going to be a life changer for the Vikings, but he will do enough to keep it ticking on offense. And probably get them into the playoffs, possibly, especially with Jefferson, Hopkinson, Addison, etc. And then even Mattison. Like, it's a bit of a rhyme going on there, isn't it, with all four of them names? But he stepped up last week. It's a shame about Cam Akers going out. But again, yeah, I'm going to go with the Vikings. I've sold myself. I have actually highlighted the Saints. But the more I think about watching that game, because I did have the Saints on the money line last week, and that was stressful watching how they were hanging in. So I'm going to switch it. Vikings win only if Jefferson starts. What about you, Paul?
I'm going with the Saints. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they just had an off day against the Bears. Josh Dobbs he rolls out to the right constantly. He runs the ball when he's pressured. He hasn't got a very good arm, and the Falcons couldn't stop he runs, he scrambles to the right, he rolls out to the right. He does that constantly, and the Falcons somehow gave him the opportunity to win that game. I don't think it would make a huge difference, Josh Dobbs having another week, because I remember him from his Pittsburgh days, and he is willing, but he is limited, and he's not going to be able to take advantage of having Jefferson because he hasn't got the arm talent. And the Saints have too many weapons. They didn't utilize their weapons against the Bears. But they only need a couple of them to click. And they've got more than enough to beat the Vikings. The Saints just need to not play a dumb game and they'll win this game. But they're capable of playing a dumb game. But I think they will win this.
Awesome. Cool. Next up, Jay, we've got Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another tricky game.
I'm like rubbing my eyes because I saw the spread was -3. And if that is still the case, I know the Steelers offense has its problems. I cannot believe that this is the spread. I think the Steelers will absolutely maul Jordan Love. They are not going to run on the Steelers. They are not going to have success in the passing game. Yeah, the Steelers will have their struggles on offense, but I think that Pickett will do enough. Like, they've got Deontay Johnson back. That is massive. We saw that in the Thursday night game. That is massive. We have what seems to be a disgruntled George Pickens. I'm sure Tomlin has had a word with him this week. He should have had a touchdown last week. For all the hype and the talk about how great his spectacular catches are, he just didn't do the fundamentals of toe tapping or sliding that back foot. And I'm a little bit concerned that he's going in the Chase Claypool direction. We'll see what happens. But having Deontay Johnson back, having Cam Hayward back, the Packers are going to get suffocated this week. And I don't think -3. I might be on freezing cold takes, but I don't see how they've come to that conclusion. I actually think the Steelers, it will be low scoring. I think the Steelers will win this comfortably.
I have to agree with you, Jay. I've got Pittsburgh winning. I see Green Bay having maybe 6 first downs in the whole game, maybe less. I don't see how this Green Bay, like the Rams defense isn't anything special, and they struggled for a lot of that game, and the only reason it was where it was just mostly through the Rams offense being unable to move the ball. Great field position most of the time. I believe Tomlin would have removed the pebble from his shoe before this game starts, so Pickens will hopefully pull his head together, deleting all of his Instagram pictures with Pittsburgh and all of that on Monday or Sunday night, whenever it was. It's just such a childish Antonio Brown thing to do. Thankfully, it looks as though he's not got yes men around him because he's uploaded most of them back. So he has corrected his immature mistake, which again, we all make stupid mistakes in the heat of the moment, and he's owned up to it and he's corrected it. So I'll give him, that's his one chance gone. Hopefully, the offense can change things around. Deontay Johnson last week was a breath of fresh air. The offense needed it more than any in terms of just something to reinvigorate them. So, we'll see what happens, but I see Pittsburgh winning this game and winning comfortably. Green Bay, Jordan Love, he's going to have a horrible, horrible 1 p.m. Eastern time game Sunday. He's going to get sacked an obscene amount of times. He will have at least 2 sack fumbles, and this will be a double-digit game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Pittsburgh defense put up more points than the Pittsburgh offense. What about you, Paul?
That's a great shout. The Pittsburgh D put on more points than the Pittsburgh offense. The Pittsburgh D put up more points than the Green Bay offense.
Let's I'll do a request the odds on that bet.
For sure. Yeah. Like there's definitely at least 9 points in it. So a touchdown and a safety. I can see at least 9. Can you see the Packers scoring 9? Yeah, if he has enough time somehow to throw the ball, then they can expose his secondary, but he won't have enough time to throw the ball.
And he has weapons in the wide receiver core to catch it as well. So it doesn't matter.
So Vegas handicap, so they give 3 points for home field. So that means that Vegas rank this as on a neutral field as a pick'em. I mean, how on earth is this a pick'em? Like the Steelers they're not. I know then we're not great, but we're better than the Packers, for goodness sake.
Vegas Steelers are at home, yeah.
Yeah.
But can you believe, sorry, just quickly changing the subject, the Vegas had the Colts as underdogs last week against the Panthers. I had to get a piece of that action because I thought that was a bloody typo at first. How did they work that out? Admittedly, based off of my betting history the last 12 months, they get it right more than they get it wrong. But that one and this one are just two. To me, they're just, something's not right.
Yeah, Pickett's getting heat. Well, both of them, Pickett and Pickens, are getting a lot of heat in Pittsburgh this week. But Pickett was hurt this past week and played through it, toughed it out, and he had damaged ribs and still stayed in the game and did just about enough. But the big thing to come out of that game this past week against the Titans was they ran for 160 yards as a team, Harris and Warren between them. That's a big plus moving forward. Yeah, too much for the Packers. Like, welcome to the NFL, Jordan Love coming into Pittsburgh. Like, I feel sorry for Jordan going in there. This is not the Pittsburgh defense of like years gone past, but it's still way too much for the Packers to handle. And yeah, I agree that I think the Steelers won't put up a lot of points, but be enough to cover -3. Just by that Vegas handicap home field at 3, that means they think this is a pick'em. It's not a pick'em. Like, Steelers will cover 3.
Perfect.
Paul, what do you think about Matt Canada now being on the sideline? Do you think that helps?
I think it's just for show. So it's so that Kenny Pickett has somebody to talk to about how terrible the plays are after they're called, after they inevitably fail. It's just for show. And what's, I think, telling is that Steelers are a very, very stubborn team, don't make changes. And somebody obviously had a quiet word with him and said, look, you've got to get your butt out of the booth and down to the sideline. So at least it looks like we are trying to do something, because they're not going to fire him until the end of the season. That's their way of saying that we are doing something about it. It's just for show. It hasn't affected anything. But like I said, at least the running game seems to be doing something now. And with George Pickens, by the way, like, we've been here before, we'll probably be here again. If he wants to behave like a child, like, see you later, bye, like, okay, see ya. We'll draft another receiver. No bother. So, yeah, he needs to just grow up. Like Tomlin said, like, they don't care. They really don't care. They just move on.
Yep. Nice one. Good stuff. Okay, next up, Tennessee Titans at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jay, who are you going with?
Difficult one. You know what? I thought that Will Levis was actually better against the Steelers than he was in the first game, given what he was going up against. He didn't really make a bad decision, and the offensive coordinator threw the game at the end. By the way, Pickett had a great fourth quarter. They took the lead, right? The Steelers took the lead. They kicked off, and the Titans basically had a 40-yard return to midfield with like not a lot of time left. And obviously they're down. On first, second, and third down, they ran the ball. And then on 4th and 6, they said, Will Levis, you have one throw to get us out of this. Please make it happen. In his second game as a rookie. He played really well, I thought. The Buccaneers, I mean, Baker played pretty well against the Texans. Like, there was one play on their final drive where it's 4th and 2, and he's moving around the pocket like he's Lamar Jackson. And then he scrambled for the first down. I thought, wow, okay. Difficult one. But I'm going to say that I'm going to go with the rookie, I think. Mr. Will Lasers Levis. With him there opening up this passing game, King Henry can eat. The Buccaneers have been a good run-stopping defense. But there's something going on with the Buccaneers now where they're just not quite getting it done. I am not confident about this because the Buccaneers will then show up. And Mike Evans continues to produce. I'm going to go with the Titans. I think that Will Levis has had 2 very good games, and I think he'll have another one.
Cool. This game is literally, I could just toss a coin and whichever one it landed on, I wouldn't feel comfortable with. It's just I could put an argument for either team to win. I could put an argument for either team to lose. Tampa Bay got Vita Vea back last week, who is the chief run stopper in the middle. That's definitely going to play its part. Stopping Henry changes everything on that Tennessee team. But I really do like Levis. Again, there's a lot more to come, or I need to see a lot more, I should say. There's just some quarterbacks out there, whether it be, again, I'm not putting him on their level, but the way the ball comes out of Mahomes' hand, Herbert's hand, Allen's hand, the velocity, you can't teach that. These are just natural attributes that you have as an individual. It looks like he's just flicking it, and it's just like a bloody rocket. It's great to watch. And if you're a Titans fan, you should be excited. If this kid is managed properly, they could have found a quarterback to keep them going. Too bad it weren't a few years earlier. It's hard to go against Tampa Bay at home with Godwin, Evans. Believe it or not, Mayfield. He's not the reason they've not been very good this year. I thought he was going to be. But to give you a quick answer, or as quick as possible, I'm going with the Titans to win. I'm going with Coach Vrabel. I'm going with the trenches, Derrick Henry and the Levis Hopkins, and also CJ Strike did great last week. But man, who's the corner for the Bucks? Is it Colton? I can't remember. They got one corner that kept getting burnt. Oh man, DeAndre Hopkins is going to eat with him. He is going to eat. And one thing that we've already seen Levis can do in bunches is throw that ball up there for the deep ball. So get ready for it to rain on Sunday. Raining footballs in the secondary of the Tampa Bay defense. I'm going with Tennessee to win. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind. I put down the Titans. The more I think, the more I want to change to the Bucks. But no, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm going to go with the Titans. The Texans did, like you said, absolutely carve up this secondary this past week. And yeah, on deep throws, and Levis will throw the ball deep. That's a problem for Tampa Bay unless they've sorted out something, or unless their pass rush is going to get home. Yeah, I'm going with the Titans.
Nice one. Next up, Jay, your team, the San Francisco 49ers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a matchup that's going to be. Who are you picking?
The J Bowl, my inherited AFC team, because they are London's team.
They are.
But one game that affiliation goes out the window, because it's my San Francisco 49ers. Oh, this is a difficult one because both teams are coming off the bye week. So both will be very prepared for this game. There's been one common trend in the 49ers 5 wins versus the 49ers 3 losses. In those 3 losses, they did not have Deebo Samuel. And you may look at his stats and say, well, that might not be such a big deal. But it is a big deal because it's not just about stats. It is about attention. And clearly, when Deebo and everyone else are on the field, they account for Deebo Samuel. It's why McCaffrey can have the crazy runs that he can have, because they're worried about Deebo Samuel. And this week, we get Deebo Samuel back. We also now have Chase Young. So the defensive line, I believe, will be Nick Bosa, the gravedigger Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, and Chase Young, with plenty of ammo behind them to rotate. We talk about how great the Eagles' rotation is. The 49ers have got a pretty damn good rotation themselves now. The Jaguars, they're really good and they're coached very well. But as I've said, I need them to prove to me that they can have more touchdown drives than field goal drives. This for me, I mean, obviously biasly, I think this is one of the best games of the week. And I obviously will be watching this in full. Ooh. I think the 49ers bounce back this week. I think that the bye week has come at the perfect time. We get Deebo back. I'm not sure about Trent. I don't think Trent's back. But I think having Deebo back, the addition of Chase Young, I think we're going to show, we're back in a way. This is the perfect opportunity to do that against a very good Jaguars team. Definitely concerned, though, with this passing attack against the speed of Kirk. Ridley will no doubt have his way with Charvarius Ward, who is a liability. The more I think about it, the more I want to pick the Jaguars. But I'm going to trust Shanahan to get this one right. We've had 2 weeks to reset. Close game. Not sure what the spread is. But I think 3.
I'm guessing that's in favor of 49ers.
Yeah.
Not sure the 49ers necessarily cover that. I think it will go to the wire. But I think the 49ers will bounce back. 49ers win.
Man, this game, I find this is even harder than the Tennessee-Tampa Bay game to pick for me. If this is on a neutral field at 9:30 Eastern time, I would pick the 49ers. I never like the West Coast team coming across and playing at 1 p.m. Eastern time. They're playing at 10 a.m. on their body clock, and it is proven time and time again it is a problem for the West Coast team. I see the Jags as the pretenders and the 49ers. I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but I see them as they're there, and Jags are trying to get to where the 49ers are in terms of their team. My concern with the Jags is their O-line. I think they're going to probably be too many penalties with that defensive front coming against them. They make the odd play, but I can see them penalties killing drives, as has happened throughout the year, and ending up being pushing them out of field goal or pushing them into a field goal instead of 7. I think I'm going to go with the 49ers, but I really want to go with the Jags, but I am going with the immense talent that the 49ers have on both sides of the ball coming out of a bye. Yes, the Jags are too. The Jags are good. They're in my top 5, but they're not top 4. The 49ers are. I'm going with 49ers to win. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, like the previous game, I'm not changing my mind. I've picked the 49ers. I'm not going to change that. I think this is a get-right game. It's a very tough game, but it's a get-right game for the 49ers. Getting Deebo back, as Jay said, is huge. They have more talent than the Jaguars. I don't really like the spread, though. Like, -3 means that, and they've got home field, so they would make the Niners 6-point favourites. Not at the moment, but if this game was a month ago, then I think the Niners would comfortably handle the Jaguars. They haven't completely lost that identity. They are in their DNA still, like we're saying, one of the very best teams in the NFL, and they need to go in there and win one of these games after losing three on the bounce. And I'm going to say that they will. So I'm picking the 49ers.
Perfect. Nice one. Next up, Cleveland Brown at the Baltimore Ravens. Jay, who are you picking?
Wow. So a colleague of mine who lives in Cleveland, Ohio, went to the game last week, the Browns versus the Cardinals. And there's a frustration, not necessarily at the player, but at the situation with Deshaun Watson and the fact that he is very rusty every time he doesn't play for a period. And it is expected. I didn't see this game, but he told me that Watson was very just off for at least 2 to 3 quarters and then found his way. He cannot have a slow start this week. It is in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the comparisons are being made about how great the Browns defense is versus how great the Ravens defense is. I feel like we've been here several times. It is slightly different because this is a divisional game and anything can happen. But I feel like we've been here several times this year where there's a big game in Baltimore. Oh, this is going to be one of the games of the week. And the last 2 I have watched and ended up turning off onto another game after 3 quarters because the Ravens have absolutely decimated them. Do I think the Ravens can do that to the Browns? I'm not so sure it can go that way because I do respect the Browns defense. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year candidate for sure. They've got a pretty good secondary, but the front seven is what stirs the drink there. Yeah, this is difficult. I think that this is a game that has come too soon for Deshaun Watson, my man, Deshaun Watson. I think the Ravens are a professional team. They are executing the way that you need to execute in high-profile games, and this is a high-profile game. But mentally, they are on it. They are sharp. I'm not so sure that the Browns' offense is, and that I think is the issue in this game. You've got Ravens' offense that are, for the most part, rolling. The Ravens' defense are rolling. The Browns' defense is playing at a high level. The Browns' offense is not. So I say Ravens win. I believe the spread is 5.5. Oh, I can see the Ravens just about covering that. I'm worried about backdoor points at the end, but I think the Ravens will win comfortably, but by no means as comfortable as their NFC exposures have been.
Yeah, divisional game, never an easy game. In Baltimore, issue I have with Cleveland is they're down 2 of their best O-linemen in Conklin and Wills, both out. That's huge. You don't just replace them 2 guys. And for me, that in itself makes it a much easier decision for me. I'm going for Baltimore to win. I don't see it being an easy. I see it being a very defensive game. It's going to be low scoring. I don't see Cleveland putting many points up at all, to be honest with you. And I see it being something along the lines of like 17-6, something like that, maybe. But Baltimore win. And if you watch the game, I think it'll be a comfortable win. The scoreline might 17-6, 17-9, there or thereabouts, might say something different, but I think it'll be comfortable. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I trust the Ravens more than the Browns, the new Browns against the old Browns, the Browns that have won a Super Bowl that are now the Ravens. Poor old Browns. Like, they've never won a Super Bowl, then they went to Baltimore and won a Super Bowl. Yeah, this could be the previous game. They kicked their ass, like the Ravens earlier in the season, but that was not Deshaun Watson. That was, I don't even know the name of this guy. Who was it?
Tyler Thompson or something, or whatever his name is.
Dorian Thompson.
Dorian Thompson, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Who threw for 120 and 3 picks against this Ravens D. In Baltimore. I think the Ravens just got too much for the Browns. I think the Browns want to be the Ravens. They're just not there yet. So they want to run a similar scheme to Baltimore, but they don't have the talent that they have. They maybe do on the D line, but apart from that, they haven't got the receivers that the Ravens have. They don't have the quarterback that the Ravens have. And now that Chubb's down, they don't have the running game that the Ravens have. So they're like, they want to be the Ravens, but they're not quite the Ravens. The Ravens will handle the Browns. Yeah, give me the Ravens.
Nice one. Next up, Atlanta Falcons at the Arizona Cardinals and the return of Kyler Murray. Jay, who you picked
really?
that one?
Yep.
Is he back?
He's back this Sunday.
Wow.
That just makes
How
this
exciting.
I don't believe it until I see it. I think they're in full tank. I think he's gonna injure himself. He's injuring himself in pre-game warm-ups or something. Like,
yeah.
Oh man, this is a horrible game to pick.
Horrible game.
Because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't. If Kyler Murray plays, you would like to think that he will be rusty.
Yeah.
But the way that this guy can run is a nightmare. He can break a game. I don't think he is as bad as I think the Cardinals portray him to be. I think the Cardinals are a horrible, horrible organization. But I think they found a good coach for sure. But I mean, look at this team. It's not a good team. They're trying hard, but talent-wise, it's not there. They've tried to basically burn the house down, haven't they, with all of the players that they have got rid of over the last 4 months. But then I come to the Falcons, and this is the ultimate 8 and 9 team. Some weeks they're going to show up, some weeks they're not. I think that this will be a week that they show up. They have the talent advantage. Money Heineke didn't give them his impact game. He is a concern. They didn't really use Bijan Robinson to the degree I thought they would be using him by now. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think the talent is just too much, but the Falcons won't show that. And I think that they will just edge this one.
I have to agree with what you said about Bijan. Was it week 1 and week 2, or maybe just week 2? he played very well. He actually played pretty well in London as well. But they're not utilising him at all, either on the ground, passing it out of the backfield. I don't get it. He's shown when you get the ball in space, he is an absolute nightmare to bring down. He is a hyped up version of Austin Eckler, who you've seen how the Chargers utilize him. And yeah, it doesn't make sense. They have a lot of weapons, and the offensive coordinator, whether there's an issue we don't know about, I don't know, but it doesn't add up. I think we all had the Falcons doing better than what they're doing right now at the beginning of the year, based off of the players. Based off of that, I want to pick the Falcons, but then I look at last week, this Atlanta team were up 10 and they couldn't stop Josh Dobbs scrambling. How are they going to stop Kyler Murray scrambling? That is the one major concern I've got is Kyler Murray can just keep this a game on his own, and we've seen him do that before. Can they fix that by then? But I don't see anyone else in this Arizona team making a game of it, as was shown last week. So I have to go with Atlanta. I hate the fact that I have to go with Atlanta because I can see Arizona winning this game just with Kyler Murray scrambling and extending drives. But I'm going to trust that Atlanta enter the game a little bit like the Jags did when they played Atlanta. Is let's not beat ourselves. Let's play ultra conservative and just take 3 points when we need to. And that will probably be enough to beat this Arizona team. So I'm going with the Falcons. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm not going to change my mind. I wrote Falcons. Kyler Murray coming back does give me cause for concern for this Falcons team. I think they are falling apart, the Falcons, but I think they've got still just enough to beat this Cardinals team, and then they will fall apart moving forward for the rest of the year. But they will get through this week. The Cardinals are very limited talent-wise. Atlanta have far more talent than the Cardinals. I don't like it, but I'm going with it. Falcons.
Nice one. Next up, Detroit Lions at the LA Chargers. Jay, another tight game. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I think this is the game I'll be watching at 9:25.
What's the spread of this game? Does either of you know?
It's -3 for in favour of the Lions.
Okay, so cool. Sorry, go for it.
No, sure. I want to start by just saying, why all week has there not been talk about this Keenan Allen catch? If this had been Odell Beckham Jr., we would not stop seeing it on social media. It would not stop being talked about. This was one of the catches of the season. Unbelievable. Give him his dues, please.
Most underrated wide receiver in the NFL, I think. It's just, don't know why, but great route runner, great hands, and he's done it for years. It's just the injuries have been the only reason why he's not got more yards. But yeah.
And he's just eclipsed 10,000 yards, might I add, with those injuries. But in a game where offense was at a premium, that was an unbelievable catch. Should be getting more coverage. I guess he's not as sexy as a name as Odell Beckham Jr. and his antics, but what a catch. Yeah, I mean, the Chargers navigated that game on Monday night. It was very difficult against that Jets defense. But the Jets made a lot of mistakes, and offensively, horrible, absolutely horrible. Outside of Garrett, Wilson, and the running back, Breece Hall, they had nothing. This Lions offense is a different challenge. I I'm forgetting the name of the Chargers head coach, maybe because I've etched him from my memory. Brandon Staley was shouting from the rooftops about, this is what our pass rush is like when it's healthy. Yeah, but you were playing the Jets offensive line. I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to pick the Lions because I think the Lions are another team that, okay, maybe not so much against the Ravens, but they execute well. They don't tend to make that many mistakes. And I'm still not sold on the Chargers. I love Herbert. I think Herbert has, elite talent. I think that the Chargers have an elite, well, in terms of talent, they've got the roster. Don't trust their coaching. Don't trust their situational football. This will be a great game, I think. Yeah. Jared Goff back in LA. I just think that some of these players like Amon-Ra St. Brown could rip the Chargers apart if the Chargers do what the Chargers do on defense and play soft. Yes, their rush is healthy, but this Lions have invested in their offensive line. They are about the trenches, and I think that's what will pull them through in this game. Lions to win, a close one. The spread might push.
Yeah. So I look at this game. I'd actually say if you swap the coaches, I'd put the Chargers as winning this game.
Good shout.
Yeah.
I look at Herbert and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And again, I'm not putting this all on Herbert because there's only so much he can do, but I'm not seeing what I should be seeing for a guy. What is he in his third year? I'm not sure. I want to see more from him because he's got that arm talent to be up there in the Allen Mahomes conversation, Burrow's conversation. And he just seems to have stagnated. That's got to go on the coach, but on his own front, he should be doing more.
What if Mahomes or Allen had this roster?
I'm not saying he should be winning the games, but I should still be seeing more in terms of throws during the game, decisions. I think the one thing he's missing is the leadership ability. And you can't really coach that, and that's fine. Not everyone has to be a leader to be great. But you look at Burrows, you look at Mahomes, and you see that straight away. I look at Herbert. I love what I see in terms of the natural talent, but I haven't seen it go on to the next level. For a couple of years now, it's still very good, don't get me wrong. He's still an elite quarterback. But just something seems to be missing, and that could be the coach. You change the coach, changes Herbert's mindset, maybe everything is then different. So hopefully we'll find that out next year because I feel like he's been stagnating. The coach is holding him back. But we'll only know that when it changes. But what's he on? Is his second or third coach since being at the Chargers? So if the next coach is exactly the same, that's when we've got to start asking serious questions on Herbert. Because again, how many times is it going to be the coach's fault when they're changing but the players are staying the same? I don't see that being a problem. So went off topic there. I think this is a good time to be betting on the Lions and to go with the Lions to win. The scoreline, I think, made the Chargers look better than what they were against the Jets. So it is a good time to go in. What was the spread, sorry? Was it 3 points, did you say?
3, yeah.
For Lions. So I like the Lions just, covering the spread on offense. We know the Chargers secondary playing their zone system. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to eat that alive, and Goff will get the ball out on time, and the run game will just keep them chains moving. The defense is stout, and the coaching is different level altogether between the two. So I'm going with Detroit to win and cover the spread. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of agreement this week, but I'm going with the Lions. Like Jay said, they're getting loads of credit, the Chargers, for sacking the Jets. Well, like this, one of the massive strengths of the Lions is this O line. They've got some dudes, and they've got my man Big Dave is back. He practiced this week. They're coming off the bye, the Lions. I've just read here, every 50, all 53 men on that Lions roster practice this week. So they're coming off the bye, they're fully healthy. It will be, as with every Chargers home game, this will be a Lions home game by default. And yeah, I think the Lions will win this game. I think it could be quite high scoring. And I have the Lions winning.
Nice one. Next up, the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Jay, who are you going with?
Danny DeVito.
I tell you what, this spread could be -28, and I'd say go with the Cowboys.
16.5 right now.
Yep. They bet it as well. It was it opened at 16. It's been bet. It's 16.5. They're betting it.
Goes up to 21. Who cares? This is the quintessential Cowboys bounce back game after a disappointing loss. They will destroy the Giants. They love these games. The Giants suck. What the? Yeah, okay. Daniel Jones or no Daniel Jones, you got blown out by the Raiders. I know that the Raiders, have a new lease of life after having to endure this Primark Patriot era, shall we say. And now they've come out of their shell again. And, Crosby's amazing. Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, the man that had been sent into the wilderness, Hunter Renfrow, who I thought was going to get traded to someone, a contender, because he's a useful player. The Bills could do with someone like that. But still, come on. You can't lose like that to the Raiders. I'm sorry. It speaks to what their roster is, though. The veto at quarterback. I don't know who it's going to be this week. Is it going to be Matt Barkley, or is it going to be Jacob Eason? Dysfunctional organization. I'm sorry. They will get destroyed in this game. The Cowboys' egos will be bruised. That it was one of those, like, how do I put it? Moral victories. They didn't get blown out. They actually nearly won the game against the Eagles, but ultimately they lost another big game. So this week against a terrible Giants, they will blow them the fuck out.
Nice one. Awesome. So for me, I actually see this being a surprise. I think the Giants can put. I can't even keep a straight face while saying it. It's not going to be close. When do we start asking questions about the coach or whoever it was that decided, the GM, the owner, that Daniel Jones was worth all of this money? That could be up there with almost as bad as drafting Jamarcus Russell #1 all them years ago. Like, that is a contract that is going to screw them over for at least. I haven't seen how the contract is. I know that you're pretty good at that stuff. 2 years, is it? So
this year, and then after that, they would still have to eat 22 million. They could do the sort of post-July trade release where they eat 11 and then they push 11 into the next year. But this is a bad situation.
Oh, it's a horrible situation. And if you're Saquon Barkley, why did you not want to leave? Nothing is going to be positive in this organization for a minimum of 2 years. The people running the organization clearly are clueless. I don't know how else you can put it, because I know we spoke about this a number of times. Anyone who is sane, anyone in their right mind, does not think Daniel Jones is the person to lead an organization. I know there has only been one time where you have been happy to watch Daniel Jones in the last couple of years, Jay. Actually, no, it's probably about 5 years ago now. And that's one time when he had that little rush to get through for the touchdown. Outside of that, there's nothing. This is an easy game for the Dallas Cowboys. I have to agree with everything Jay said. Minus 16.5. That's as close to free money as you're going to get. They're at home as well, the Cowboys. It's not even in. Even if it was in the Giants, I would like them to cover it. Yeah, this is going to be painful very quickly. The only way this stays remotely close is if Dak turns the ball over an obscene amount of times. And even if he does, they will still win. But yeah, Dallas to win. What about you, Paul? You got a shot pick for us?
Well, this game, I think it's pick the number of times that DeVito is sacked. And will the Cowboys have more sacks than the Giants have points? That could be the way to. That's the request.
That bet. That's another request to bet to go with the Steelers. Whatever that bet was. What Steelers Green Bay bet?
Yeah, and if you double that up, that'd be a huge return. Surely, like
there we go.
Yeah, no, the Giants are a complete mess. And yeah, the Cowboys love these front running games. They'll go ahead and then just let their defense just go loose on this Giants O-line who can't block anyone. There's be plenty of sacks. It'd be a great game to watch if you're a Cowboys fan, just for entertainment purposes. But yeah, it won't be close.
Okay, next up, Washington Commanders against the Seattle Seahawks. Jay, who are you picking on this one?
Wow, this is an interesting game.
It is.
Seattle. I don't want to jump the gun, and I'm sure I'm jinxing my team by saying this, but I think we're starting to find out the Seahawks are not ready this year. And Geno Smith is turning the ball over at an alarming rate. It's in Seattle. I really don't know what to make of the Cardinals, of the Commanders, because Paul's man Sam Howell keeps.
He's clutched. He comes through.
He comes through, doesn't he?
Sometimes, and then sometimes he's shocking.
Yeah, I feel like the moment I start to believe in Sam Howell, he's not to believe in him, and then I believe in him, and then he says, "Watch this."
Yeah.
I can't really. It's like the Titans. I can't really get him right.
He's the ultimate roller coaster, Sam.
The ultimate roller coaster. I'm sure he will throw for 300 plus in this game. Seattle really, really got their ass kicked last week. Like, that was as big of a reality check as you could get.
Suffocated, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they gave up a lot of big runs towards the end when the game was done. I mean, yeah, I was watching this game up until I think the end of the third quarter, and then they took Lamar out, and I said, okay, well, game over.
Yeah.
They should. I feel like Seattle should be better than they are, though. Geno's turning it over too much. But their defense is better than what it showed. I know that sounds crazy because you're only as good as what you do show. But the Commanders are not the Ravens. It's in Seattle. This is definitely a gut pick. And I say Seattle bounce back, mainly because they need to. Because their upcoming schedule, if they can't beat the Commanders, they have no chance of winning this division when they have 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers again, and then the Eagles. Yeah, more reality checks coming, I think. So this is a must win. And my gut tells me they will make it happen, but not confident about it. Don't know what the spread is.
6.
I was thinking about 2.5.
I'll take the Commanders on the spread, but I think Seattle might edge this one. So Seattle win.
So you said, funnily enough, the exact words that I was thinking at the time that you said it is the Commanders are not the Ravens. Now, you were watching the game. Do you notice how many times Jamal Adams got confused on the RPOs? Like, just held off that split second. Am I going to run to Jackson or go for the running back? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with Sam Howell. He knows he got made to look a bit foolish against that Ravens team. He's not someone that takes looking foolish very well. So I do feel a bit sorry for Sam Howell this week. I think Seattle will have too much. Their secondary is a strength. The problem they had against the Ravens is the running game of the Ravens is their strength, and that isn't the best part of the Seahawks. The Seahawks secondary will turn Sam Howell over, in my opinion, more than once. I see Seattle winning this game. I wouldn't bet on the spread, but I do see them covering it. I don't like it. I think the spread should be about 2.5 points. Being at home, okay, maybe 3.5, 4 points with the home field advantage. But it's close to a pick'em if it's on a neutral field. Very, very concerned that Geno is regressing. He's definitely not going in the direction anyone wants to see him going if you're a Seahawks fan. But it's at Seattle. I'm going with the Seattle win. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Seahawks. Yeah, it will be close. I am worried with what I've seen from Seattle recently, but the Commanders I'm not going to give them too much credit for beating a terrible Patriots team. This is different. It's back-to-back games on the road from New England the whole way across country to Seattle, going reverse. That's another 4 time zones difference. Seattle have to have this game. Jay said about their upcoming schedule. I think they will. I think they will get it. The Seahawks' weakness, one of their biggest weaknesses is their O-line, and the Commanders have just given up their 2 of their best pass rushers. So I don't think they're going to take advantage of that. Kenneth Walker could have a big game running the ball against this Commanders team. Yeah, Seattle will win, but they do worry me because they do go like long periods in games, like 2-3 quarters. Remember against the Browns, they went like 3 quarters without doing anything. They scored like a few points to start the game, then didn't do anything, and then scored some points at the very end of the game. But the whole middle of the game did nothing. And against the Ravens, obviously give the Ravens credit. They've got an amazing D, but they just smothered them and they couldn't do anything. Even when they turned the ball over and they had short fields, still couldn't put up any points. Commanders D is not the Ravens D. That's the difference. And yeah, Seattle will win this game, I think.
I love that. They will win this game, I think.
Not confident, but because I believe in Sam. He does like these moments. He's not going to be bothered. He's not going to be phased going into Seattle into that stadium. He's not. Remember the Eagles game on the road. Like he's not worried about these moments. So it's not going to be Sam that's going to lose the game. It's going to be their lack of talent.
Hugh, 100 yards passing, 4 turnovers.
He's capable of that, but he's also capable of like 450 and 4 touchdowns. We just don't know.
You never know with him. Jekyll and Hyde. Right, next up, New York Jets at the Las Vegas Raiders. Jay, who are you picking?
Another horrible primetime game.
Yep.
Just one of those weeks, I think. It's not going to be bang on every week, but it's horrible. What do you do here? What do you get from Raiders in week 2 of the Antonio Pierce era? They definitely have a new lease of life, but it's one thing to beat a horrible Giants. You now get a Jekyll and Hyde team. You've got an elite defense with the Jets. It is elite, but you have got a terrible Jets offense. Is the Jets offense worse than the Giants offense? No, but it's not much better. It really isn't. I mean, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, the running back, but Crosby could eat in this game. This is such a difficult game. It's in Las Vegas.
It is.
Yes.
The fact that they've been struggling to get the ball to Devontae Adams, and now he is going to get shadowed probably by Sauce Gardner. I feel like whatever his over-under is, if it's like 60 plus, it's probably going to be under, just by the fact that they don't demonstrate the ability to get it to him. And now you've got a very good young corner that can shut him down. I don't have a good feeling about this. I am going to pick. I'm shaking my head. No, you know what? I'm going to pick the Raiders because I'm not going to put my trust in the hands of that offensive line with Zach Wilson. I'm just going to hope that the buzz that is going on with the Raiders right now continues for one more week. But the Jets defense is scary.
Yeah. This game
Raiders win.
Nice one. This game is tough. Surely the Jets can't be as bad as they was against the Chargers. Or can they? Yes, they could be, because we have seen it on more than one occasion this year. The Raiders are riding the crest of a wave right now. Will that continue? I don't think on the offensive front it will, because this D is legit. Now, I look at this game and it's two very bad teams playing against each other. With both teams having a good defense, one team having a very good defense. But the team with a good defense has a better offense. And I see that being the difference at the end. The Jets are having to travel across country. Never easy to do. Oh, God, this is a horrible one. I've highlighted Raiders as my pick, but the Jets defense, they're just going to keep them in this game because no team is going to run away with this. That's for sure. But I know when I picked the Jets to beat the Chargers, I was watching it. And even before the game started, I was thinking, I have no chance of winning this with Zach Wilson as my quarterback. I made the pick based off of the defense, thinking, right, they'll be able to move the ball enough on this Chargers D, as we've seen time and time again, and the defense will keep them in this game. And the fact he couldn't move the ball on the Chargers defense is very concerning to me. I think his days as an NFL starter are long gone. he might even struggle to be an NFL backup in a few years' time. And this was the number 2 overall pick. I have to go with the Raiders purely because Devontae Adams hasn't done anything for the last few weeks, so him being taken out of the game by a source isn't going to make any difference to their offensive plan because they don't throw it to him anyway, so it doesn't matter. Jacobs last week, I think he ran for about 98 yards, so they got him going again. Even if he doesn't, I don't see him rushing for much, but they need to stick with the run just to keep the Jets honest. I see this being a disgustingly horrible match. I've said that. It seems like every game so far. But I see the Raiders winning purely because whoever they start at quarterback, I don't care who they have. They could start Kaimi Fairbairn, the Texans kicker at quarterback, and I still think they will have a better chance at winning than Zach Wilson at quarterback of the Jets. So I'm going with Raiders to win. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I am going with the Raiders. They sacked the Giants quarterback 8 times this past week. And the Jets O-line is not as bad as the Giants O-line, but it's not much better than the Giants O-line. How many sacks do we give Max Crosby this week?
That could be 2 and probably be 1.5, but wouldn't be surprised if it was 2.5.
Yeah, so we do the request the bet with these, and we request number of sacks for Micah Parsons and TJ Watt and Max Crosby this week going against terrible O-lines. Does Max Crosby have more sacks than the Jets have points? Would he have 4 sacks and the Jets have 3 points? Or Jets offensive points?
I don't trust
not Jets total points. You'd have to say offensive points. Because they could have a kick return. They could have Will the Jets defense score more points than the Jets offense? That's probably more likely.
That'll probably be even.
Yeah. I think this is a bad matchup for the Jets, but just because they're going against Max Crosby and the Raiders just had 8 sacks. And even when the Jets were winning games, Zach Wilson was still pretty bad. And they won 3 games in a row. He threw for 1 touchdown in those 3 games. And so they need to be perfect on the D side to actually cover for Zach Wilson. And I think it's just too much now. I think the Jets are kind of finding their level. And the Raiders played hard. There's a big part of football is attitude and having fun, and you see it with Deshaun Watson. He never seems like he's having any fun. He's just very, very moody on the sidelines. And then I saw when Jay's good friend CJ Strikes, when he won the game, and he's there with and it looked like they're having a great time on the touchline. They're having fun. And the Raiders looked like they were having fun this past week. That's going to continue. And I think that will keep rolling and they'll beat the Jets.
Denver at Buffalo. I'm taking Buffalo. They need to win this game, and I think they will. Denver are improving, but this is a step too much, and Buffalo win this.
Denver Broncos at the Buffalo Bills. God, where to start with this game? I don't see it being one that's going to set the pulses rising. Won the last game against the Chiefs. Yeah, is that going to happen again? I don't see lightning striking twice. See Josh Allen and co, meaning Kincaid and Diggs, having too much for Denver, and Buffalo coming out with the win. Not sure what the spread is. I would imagine it's somewhere around 7 points, and I see the Bills having enough to cover the 7-point spread if that's the case.
Monday Night Football, Broncos at Bills. The Broncos have actually gotten over their embarrassing start. They're showing signs of improvement. Russell Wilson is starting to turn the corner. But yeah, this is probably a bridge too far. I don't trust the Bills, but I think they win this game. Tend to get good officiating decisions as well. Please, Gabriel Davis, do something this week.
So my first bet of the week, we've touched upon it a few times already, has to be Dallas Cowboys, minus 16.5. I just do not see how they don't cover that with DeVito as their quarterback. The offense has shown nothing over the last couple of weeks. The defense didn't show hardly anything against the Raiders, which was a bit of a surprise. Dallas coming off of the loss last week against the Eagles. A great bounce back team. They're going to come back with way too much for the Giants. 16.5. I see this being 20-25 point at least win for the Cowboys. So go with minus 16.5 Dallas Cowboys.
Best bet number 1, Steelers Packers under. Number is 39. I have this game going well under that, under 39.
Best bet number 1, the Steelers minus 3 against the Packers, and it's in Pittsburgh. Are you kidding me? As Tyson Fury said, easy money, free money.
My second bet of the week, I'm actually changing it up this week. I'm going to go with a double. So for my bet of the week, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, both on the money line. That will give you 1.2 to 1. So you're getting better than evens. And I don't see how both teams don't win. You've got Cleveland without their 2 starting O-linemen. Deshaun Watson looking not himself as he's done now for about a year. Ravens, top 2 teams in the league as we speak. At home, they're going to have way too much for the Cleveland Browns. And then looking at Pittsburgh Steelers playing at home, again, going to be too much for Green Bay. Green Bay have shown absolutely nothing on offense. I love Pittsburgh on the spread, let alone on the money line, but give me both of them on the money line just to keep things a bit more relaxed this week, and I love them both to cover.
Jets Raiders under 36 is best bet number 2.
Best bet number 2, Cowboys to cover 16.5. Yes, 16.5 versus a terrible Giants team. Don't know who will be at quarterback for the Giants. Doesn't matter. Their roster is terrible. The Cowboys coming off a disappointing loss to the Eagles. They love these games. They will run the score up to make themselves feel better. I don't think it will even be that close to the 16.5. They will win this by a mile.